Or not.
Please begin to take your seats. The meeting will convene in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. The meeting will begin in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Do you want to say something right up front too, right now? Or do you want to do him first?
Let's do him first.
Okay.
How's the meeting?
Great. Absent without you.
Yeah.
Floss? How are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you?
Good
Good to see you, buddy.
morning.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Great. Do you want to talk about gutting your buck?
Yeah, who gutted your deer this year? Who was it?
I think, who was it? No, I can't remember.
I hear it's not in your office yet.
It is now. It just got there. It took a while.
Is it?
Yes. Swing by.
That's a big...
That's a Like saying that about a regent, imagine that.
Let's begin our meeting. I'll call the meeting to order, and I want to thank everybody for being with us for day 2. And I once again want to thank the wonderful staff here at Helena College for being so accommodating to all of us over the last 2 days. Dean Bingham, thank you so much. There was some conversation up here at the head table about yesterday being National Popcorn Day, about whether or not today is National Dental Floss Day. We're not sure, but if you could look that up, that would be very helpful. But thank you so much for your accommodations and your hospitality over the last 2 days. We will begin. We have a couple of special guests, ex officio members of our board, and we're so pleased that Superintendent Arnson and Governor Bullock are with us today, this morning. And so without further ado, I think what I'd like to do is to introduce Governor Bullock and have him take the microphone and give us his remarks for this morning. Governor Bullock, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Chair Tuss, members of the Regents, and indeed the entire higher educational community that gathers here. Appreciate the opportunity to give a couple of different updates from at least where I sit as of today. As you might all know, that we gather in the midst of a legislative session. And before I speak directly to that, though, I think that we should put in context some of our efforts leading to where we are today. Because over the past 4 years, I'm pleased with what collectively we have been able to accomplish together. When I look at some of the signature achievements, it's obvious that we're providing better and we're providing more relevant education to students. We're preparing them to be ready for the workforce and the world, while we're also doing our level best to keep costs down and reduce the time it takes to get a degree. And we can say all these statements and we can look at what the accomplishments have been, but they're more than just statements, and it's been with coordinated and concerted effort of all of the parties in this room. Together, we worked together in 2013 and 2015 legislative sessions to increase investments into higher education, which ultimately afforded us that opportunity to allow campuses to keep tuition frozen. In the greater context, if you look from 2008 to today, in real terms, 46 states decreased their investments in higher education on average by 17% in real terms. Montana was one of the 4 states that were increasing our investments in higher education. We've looked at where the opportunities are for our students. At this point, each semester, this year, the Montana University system will enroll 2,500 high school students in college courses for dual credit, providing these students, for some of them, the first exposure to recognize that they would be college material, but also saving Montana families $5 million in tuition payments. We've developed and implemented a system-wide prior learning assessment policy that makes it easier for veterans and adult learners to demonstrate their competency and receive credit for the training that they received during their service. Prior learning assessments ensure that a student doesn't have to repeat that unnecessary training and can help reduce barriers for entry and completion among veterans and others looking to further their education and return to the workforce. Through EdReady, collectively, we're saving student time and money by reducing the need for remedial math courses. EdReady also evolved to include other significant uses, including supplementing middle and high school math courses, summer remediation boot camps, ACT math prep, and prep for high school math courses. There's been over 30,000 enrollments in this program. In 2015, a priority of this board and the university system in mind, and through the Main Street Project, was actually start making state investments into research. The competitive awards that went out, and so many of you did good work on both screening and making sure that we had good projects, went to Montana researchers to solve Montana problems in areas of agriculture, energy, natural resources, manufacturing, health and biomedical advancements. The funded projects are already driving our economy forward, and it's something that as we go and look long term, that we need to both celebrate those successes and make sure in subsequent sessions that people don't forget that. We're partnering with the Montana University system and several of our tribal colleges to integrate apprenticeships with existing academic programs, giving those students that opportunity to earn while they learn. Department of Labor and Industry and Flathead Valley Community College developed the state's first competency-based apprenticeship program, fully integrated with college coursework at Flathead Valley. These apprentices were able to enter the workforce immediately, contributing as full-time employees from the very start of the program, and progressing through Flathead Valley Community College coursework, one class per semester, one night per week, with incremental pay increases along the way, ultimately earning both that apprenticeship certificate and a college credential. And of course, through the TACT program, Rev Up in Healthcare Montana, we are aligning and have fundamentally changed, in some respects, curriculum with our state industry needs and streamlining career pathways for students in some of our highest demand fields. All of that takes concerted efforts from the private sector, from this board, and from everybody that this board oversees, as well as from state government. Now, there's no doubt that we have some difficult decisions to make this year with the legislature in town. Global commodity prices are down, but we're not, and we don't have to put ourselves into crisis. At the start of the session, I proposed a budget that ensures the government doesn't spend more than it brings in, and that we maintain a healthy rainy day fund. That proposed budget funded core essential services and makes necessary investments in education. If we go back 5 years ago, there's actually fewer employees working in the executive branch or in state government than when I took office. But we have made investments in things like our K-12 system. That was 40% of the overall increases in general fund expenditures for the first 4 years, and we have made investments in higher education. The budget that I proposed looks a little bit different, at least as of today. Significant changes have been made, and I do have concerns with the budget in its current form. The legislature's budget, as it stands, with significant cuts to higher education, as well as significant cuts for essential services for Montana's senior citizens, children, and others, is, from at least where I sit as of today, though recognizing we have a long way to go, but from where I sit, it's unacceptable. And Montanans are still certainly waiting for an infrastructure bill to pass, a bill that includes projects on your respective campuses, and the university system's #1 priority is ranked, this time, Romney Hall. Now, I'm optimistic, and I guess that's what I get paid for, is to be optimistic. But I am optimistic that there are so many of these areas that we will find agreement on. And at the halfway point, there's still a heck of a lot of work to do as budget negotiations and discussions reconvened after transmittal or semester break. I've been clear that the only budget from my perspective that really is acceptable is one that balances our budget, makes responsible decisions about our state finances in order to maintain our strong fiscal standing, and those responsible decisions also have to include some of the investments that we rely on, because I think cutting $25 million from higher education funding is not a responsible decision. We should be enhancing higher education opportunities for Montana students, not putting this board in what I've called a Sophie's choice of having to make some significant cuts or increases in tuition. And I think that we all need to recognize that it's not enough just to talk about on the appropriation side of restoring funding into budgets. Because right now, we have to make sure the budget that I proposed both made those investments, but also made sure that we had the money in the bank to leave an ending fund balance and fund those services through some revenue enhancements. So I think this conversation also has to be a discussion about increasing some revenues so that, in fact, we can fund higher education and senior long-term care, other critical services in the budget that, as of today at least, are cut. A lot for us to be pleased with. I mean, we have one of the best tax climates for business. Tax Foundation says the 6th best in the nation. Montana's been recognized as one of the fairest overall tax systems in the country. I don't want to upend that, but I also think we need to make sure that we're making investments that are important. I proposed what I think are fair and modest revenue enhancers that do deserve thoughtful consideration, modest consumption tax increases, raising by 1% the tax on every dollar earned over $500,000 a year by an individual. It doesn't completely make sense to me that somebody making minimum wage pays the exact same highest marginal tax rate as somebody making $250 an hour. These are discussions that we need to have in the second half of the session, because I think that Montanans really do expect government to provide essential services. And education is not a nice to have. Education is one of those essential services that I fundamentally believe that all Montanans expect to be funding. And we'll continue to work, certainly, my administration will work with Democrats and Republicans to make sure that we have a budget that just does that. But we also need your collective help and all of you in TV land's collective help to get this done. Because the legislators need to hear not just from the campuses, not just from the students, and not just from me, but also from the employers who depend on the highly qualified graduates of the university system. And also from those communities where our university units are based. Because it is so much more important than just the work that each of you as administrators in this room do, or this Board of Regents. And collectively, Montanans need to be weighing in on the importance of this university system. So thank you for, again, your help and your partnership. Thanks for the students also that have come up to the Capitol in support of revenue enhancers, responsible decisions for our state's future. One of my favorite lines from first half of the session was one of the students testify and say, you know, things are tough when college students are coming in and asking for higher taxes on alcohol. But that support, not just from college students, but from businesses and others, I think is tremendously beneficial to our efforts, and to make sure that we walk out of this session funding those essential services, recognizing that in a tighter budget, we're not going to get everything that we want, but we also have services that we are expected by all Montanans to be providing, and collectively we need to do that. So I thank you all on the Board of Regents, as well as the rest of you, not only for the work that you do, not only at these meetings, but every day as you serve as both advocates for education in your communities, as professionals for education in your communities and your workplaces and throughout your state. Thanks for having me for a part of this meeting, Commissioner and Chair.
Absolutely.
I guess I should look if I leave now.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your important remarks. Thank you for your administration's partnership with higher education and everything that you've done during your tenure as Chief Executive of the state of Montana. We're glad you're here with us today. Those are for you. And now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Superintendent Artson. Thank you very much for being with us. It's wonderful to have you here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Tusk. Appreciate that. And thank you very much, Commissioner Christian. And Governor, thank you for your kind remarks toward K-12 education, and of course about the process with the legislature. And of course, Dean Bingham, it's wonderful to be here, and I appreciate your hospitality, as well as our presidents and chancellors that are within the room. I'm very humbled to be here. As an educator, 5th and 6th grade for 23 years, to be sitting here within, such esteemed company is very honoring. And my mother was a special ed teacher. My father was an American history teacher. And for me to find myself in this seat and from that path, I'm humbled. And within that, having 147,000 school children across our state, and our enrollment's growing, which is a real positive component here. I have broad shoulders, and I have a positive outlook for their future going forward. So when we had our very first conversation, I was very pleased to when we had the phone conversation with the Board of Regents just last month, was wanting to say that we want to have a very robust discussion. Our partnership going forward is something that I'm looking to a very bright future. Lots of conversations have taken place so far. During the process of, I think this is my 9th Friday in office, and yes, we are counting them down, had a good conversation with my husband, and he said, you know, honey, when you were in the legislature, you would come home after 4 months. He said, now is it 4 years? I said, well, you know, Helena is my home, and we are making Helena our home. And we are excited that Montana has been very gracious for this election cycle. So, Governor, you spoke very kindly of K-12, as I alluded in the opening. It has been a very whirlwind session as we're halfway through with it. I want to say thank you very much for signing the K-12 base aid inflationary factor. It's wonderful. We had $47.4 million that went to schools already with your signature, Governor. First time ever in this speedy moment. Our motto is putting Montana students first. And it was shown that way through the legislative process as well as with your signature, and I thank you for that. Our budgets are getting prepared right now for that next group of students that are going to be in our classrooms in our very many districts across our state. And as education is going to be deployed, they now then can begin their bargaining. They can now then understand who that quality teacher is going to be in front of them. And that's very important that the legislature, that Montana put K-12 education first. And I'm very blessed with that, as we all are. But we're not done yet, as our governor alluded. I have requested in my budget everything that is statutorial. If indeed a natural resource development payment that is statutorily set goes away, that will be a tax shift to local taxpayers. Students, schools, districts across our state will remain whole, but the burden will be shifted to our local taxpayers. I don't know if that is the way that we should fund public education. I do believe in the state's responsibility. I do believe that the state has an investment to make in K-12 education. Another component that we're watching very carefully, which is in statute right now, is data for achievement. Yes, it is about testing, but it goes into general funds. It's amounting to about $20 per student. If that is removed, that is monies that is taken away and flexibility that is taken away from school districts' budgets. That is not a tax shift, that is money that is gone. So we're watching those components very much. The only thing that I have asked in my budget has been a look at our special needs students. These students are in all of our classrooms, and they deserve that investment from the state. Special education, I have asked for, is a one-time only so that we can come back with our agency and make sure that we're deploying services and education to our most needy that are in all of our communities. We've asked for a one-time only. Today, the Appropriations Committee is acting on our budget as well as yours, Chairman Tusk. So we are very hopeful that they are hearing us this morning, as well as all the multiple conversations we've had in the hallowed halls in the Capitol, as well as on telephones and other people reaching out to say, please, please continue to put K-12 education forward. So what have we been working on in partnership? Well, CTE, STEM, you're right in there with us. We need to make sure that we are looking toward the future. Math achievement. We've put a lot of energy and effort into reading, but when you take a look at scores, and granted, it may be one test that is a summative test, but when you look at all the formative tests that are there, we can do better and we can make Montana proud in math. So we are going to be doing more working toward math, not just with dual credit, not just with what happens with remediation, not just in our K-12 system, but seeing what that link is going to be in our two-year, in our community, in our tribal, and indeed in our brick and mortar. Math, Montana math. Macy, it's extremely important that we have a very robust discussion and a continued discussion with the university system, as the previous superintendent did as well. That is with Montana's Advisory Council on Indian Education. We have held every week with our tribal members that are elected officials in the legislature, and they are coming to us saying, how can you help our individual needs and our challenges in our communities where our Native students reside? And we are listening, and we are going to have a more continued, robust discussion even after they leave. We also have an education caucus every other week. We have hot coffee and apple fritters, 7 in the morning, to get these legislators there. And I can share, out of 150, we've had 70 plus come and attend. They come and they listen. We've put together programs on mental health. We've put together programs and have offered you coming with Dr. Seck and Angela McLean have come and have shared that robust partnership that higher ed can offer in K-12 to legislators. We also do a Leaders in Learning program where we have invited legislators out into our community schools here in Helena and in East Helena and in Montana City. We're going to continue that program when they get back into their communities and invite county commissioners, mayors, anybody of elected capacity or anybody in their leadership role in their community to walk into public school, to be a partner in public school. Mental health awareness, and I think everybody using that word awareness needs to understand that youth suicide in Montana is very challenging. It hits all of our communities. April 5th, we will be partnering in the Rotunda, and we'll be gathering and sharing ribbons to everybody that walks by to become a champion for mental health, to understand that a life cut short is a life that needs to continue going forward, that in Montana, every single life is a positive investment in our future together. We have participated in 2 graduations at Chaudhary Hospital. These are individuals, these are young men who have a future. And it was a graduation of a celebration. We also are going to participate in a JAG graduation, which is a school to work transition program in Dillon at the end of the month. So there are alternative ways that students can achieve and celebrate success. We have more than 35 alternative high schools in our state, looking to see how education is deployed in unique manners, making sure that they have everything that is given to them, plus the opportunity to cross that stage in however fashion, whatever time of year, and be ready for their career, be ready for college, and being also ready for their community. My vision is to work with you, Chairman Tusk, and the Board of Regents that are here, to make sure that K-12 education is at the table, that we are listening, that we are participating, and that we can act in any positive manner to make sure that the investment of that very precious tax dollar can continue and make Montana proud. Thank you for allowing me my comments, Chairman Tusk.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Arnson. We're glad you're at the table today. Thank you for being with us. We are now going to transition into our regular business meeting. Both of you are more than welcome to stay, but I understand that you have other obligations, particularly during the legislature. So thank you so much, both of you, for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Could I just, with your indulgence, as much as I'd like to stay, I do have to go up, but also I did want to, in walking in, it said to Dean Bingham, both congratulations on what will be the next chapter of your life, and not just as governor, but as a member of the Helena community. Thank you for a job well done in impacting this community, but indeed this entire state. Thanks for having me this morning as well.
Thank you, Governor. We'll now transition into remarks by the third statewide elected official that we have here today, Regent Nystuen, won a very tough race for the chair of the 2-year and community college committee. we're pleased that you won that
We have
election.
members of the committee that think that my phones were tapped.
So with that, we will turn it over to the 2-year and community college committee chaired by Regent Nystuen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you all recall, the committee also includes Chair Paul Tuss, Regent Lozar, and Regent Berkey are the members of our committee. This morning we have 3 items that we will present to the board. Deputy Commissioner Seck has arranged some quick PowerPoints and presentations on the Healthcare Montana Initiative, a $15 million grant. It's working its way towards completion. The all-important MUS co-requisite design initiative is an update on that area. And of course, the governor just referenced here just a few minutes ago, the dual enrollment initiative across the state. So with that, I'd like to queue up John Seck for us this morning and the Healthcare Montana Rural and Frontier Outreach. So, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. It's hard to believe that we're now about 2.5 years into the Healthcare Montana grant, which was launched on October 1, 2014. And I would just like to remind the board that the primary focus of that grant has been to focus on rural and frontier areas of the state. And I think one of the things that really helped us to secure the grant is the fact that Montana is a frontier state. In fact, we're one of 6 states in the highest category of frontier status. Basically, 47 of our 56 counties are classified as frontier status. And it's also important to note that spread throughout the state, we have 64 acute care healthcare facilities across the state. And 48 of them have been converted to critical access hospitals. I was visiting with Dick Brown, president of the Montana Hospital Association, the other day, and they pointed out that in looking at just half of our hospitals in the state, as of yesterday, we have 252 open nursing positions. That's only from half of the hospitals, and that does not include the long-term care facilities or other clinics in public health. So the work that we're doing with Healthcare Montana, which includes all of the 2-year campuses in the state, regional comprehensives, and tribal partners, is very critical. So Missoula College is leading that effort, and Dean O'Brien is here today to provide this board with a snapshot of the work that they're doing, and particularly as it relates to the rural regions.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Commissioner, Chair, and Regents, appreciate this opportunity to update you on the healthcare grant. Montana was quite lucky to get not one, but 2 of these trade alignment grants through the U.S. Department of Labor. And I've been really excited as I've been preparing to present this information to you in this update, because this is a point in the grant that we are really starting to see things coming together, and some of these concepts as the grant was written and the early implementation of it, where an enormous amount of time and energy and expertise was put into it, that is now paying off, and we're really starting to see some exciting results. And I do have to give a shout out to Dean Wolf at Great Falls, who really kind of laid the groundwork for the TACT 3 grant, the one prior to us, because it's helped us tremendously kind of understand how to get this kind of underway. I'm going to just share with you kind of quickly by the numbers. Currently we have over 5,000 students who are enrolled in everything from in one of the health professions, either allied health or nursing, who have been a part of this, and 2,000 of those students have been directly receiving services, either by coaching or tutoring, or being communicated with academic advising, kind of in different ways. We have 15 campuses total that we're coordinating with. We call them our sub-awardees. 4 of those campuses are our tribal college partners. And we have 155 different healthcare certificates or degrees. Some of those are duplicated throughout the system. And well over 200 industry representatives. And you'll see, and one of the pieces that's so exciting for me is that we call this a homegrown solution. On the original slide, you saw that this is a homegrown solution, and it's not just homegrown what's best for Montana. It's really homegrown as far as what's best for those providers in the small towns of Libby and in the frontier areas. And that's what's been kind of an exciting piece for us. With the curricular revisions for nursing that are underway now, we're looking at $8,000 reduction for nurses, not just in tuition, but in their time to be in the workforce, earning their salaries, and then we now are increasing our number of distance delivery offerings, and not just in nursing, but we're increasing the number of courses that are offered throughout the state in different allied health programs as well. The really exciting number that I'm going to show you a little bit more on, of just a couple maps to show after this, we have 48 now employees who are currently enrolled as registered apprentices in the healthcare field alone. And you've heard earlier about the apprenticeship concept and I call it a marriage, really, the recognition that healthcare, that the Department of Labor and Industry has registered apprenticeships that have a robust curriculum for work-based learning, and traditional higher education, post-secondary education has a robust curriculum to prepare people to be highly skilled and with a strong knowledge base. And we are now recognizing those 2 efforts that have been going on for centuries, and we're beginning to really reap the benefits of that. Next slide, please. So these are, so we have, there's another handout that will kind of goes into further detail about some of the products that we have, for lack of better word, some of the offerings we have. Our CRRNs are registered nurses who are in areas, and in some ways, we look at the CRRNs kind of as the faculty affiliate is the way in my brain, I kind of connect it with our dual enrollment concept, where they are faculty affiliates in that they work very closely with supervising faculty to make sure that instruction is at a high standard, and but they are on site working with the apprentice or the student. It's kind of interesting now. The question is, do we call them employees? Do we call them students, or do we call them apprentices, or do we call them learners? So it depends on where you are. But this is a great model that seems to be working to identify a strong leader slash teacher in the who's also a provider in the sites to work with our faculty. And as you can see on the map, these are facilities who are learning how to become. These are RNs who are very interested throughout the state in becoming, or they have already become part of this program, the CRRN training. And you know, we've known for a long time that if you recruit people who are invested in the community, they are much more likely to stay in the community. And that's, employers are just thrilled about this model. We are also hugely increasing our distance learning opportunities for students. These are the current students who are in the prerequisites for the nurse practitioner programs throughout the state with the intention of going into that field. Next slide. And then these are students who have been accepted into these programs. There we go. You know, as Deputy Commissioner Seck already pointed out, we have a serious nursing shortage. We also have a shortage in other areas in the allied health field, and the programs that we have put in place specifically address these needs. And this hasn't been done kind of randomly. Oh, let's throw another program up here. There have been deliberate numbers looked at of working with the Department of Labor and Industry to anticipate not only what positions will be needed, but where they will be needed for recruitment purposes. Okay, next slide, please. This is the visual that I think helps kind of paint a clear picture of our apprenticeship programs that range across the state. One of the, like I mentioned, 48 apprenticeships, apprentices, I beg your pardon, and 8 different apprenticeships, different types of apprenticeships, and that number is growing weekly. I think one of the great benefits that we will see, and we're looking at sustainability, this is the point in time that we're looking at sustainability for this grant, and a couple of points on sustainability. One is simply the curriculum was significantly revised, which will be sustainable, which is sustainable. Another piece that is, as we're in the infancy stages of looking at sustainability, another piece that has happened is that we have built trust with employers now. When we come to them as representatives of the Montana University system and tell them, we want to meet the needs, we want to meet your needs, we want to be adaptable, you know, tell us what you need, we will be able to change what we've done and how we've done it. We are doing that, and now we have done that. And that has built a tremendous amount of trust, so we're now having employers approaching us with creative ideas that, like a training for the CNAs, the certified nurse assistants, so that they can have a stronger understanding of the work that they're doing. One other point I want to explain to you that we're seeing a great deal of success is the Healthcare Montana, we call it the LEAD program, where we have a lead nurse who has, some call them huddles, some of them call their 2 o'clocks. They're very brief, 5 to 10 minute meetings that have either a topic that is an issue that might be needing to be addressed, or a debrief of the last 24 hours on the floor. And we've gotten great feedback. It's a very rich opportunity to lead, and it's, again, it's work-based learning. So, and you might have an experience that you aren't sure if you responded the best way, and so you're able to share that with your colleagues and with one of those nurses who has more experience than you do. And we're additionally, so we're learning from different sites, being able to transfer those to other sites to see if those might work, and we're. This is the point in time where our partners in those 15 different colleges have really done a tremendous job of working with faculty to really implement change and listen to the needs of the employers. The AHECs who've been doing this for a long time, they're one of our primary partners, have done a tremendous job as well, reaching out to prospective students and coaching students. And then the Department of Labor and Industry continues to be a tremendous partner in really recognizing what the healthcare needs are. And with that, I stand for question.
Thank you, Dean O'Brien. Any, Regent Sheehy?
You've talked about sustainability and growth of this program. Do you see any opportunities to spread this concept beyond the healthcare field?
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. Certainly. In fact, the apprenticeship model is being looked at, certainly I mean, it's really a national effort, and 2 or 3 years ago, I ventured to say, I'm looking to Deputy Commissioner Sack, who has a better knowledge base of that, but we didn't see this. We just didn't see it. And there's been a significant elevation of that. So across the board, I think are there 7,000 registered apprenticeships at the national level, from everything from your traditional plumbing to some of these things. But yeah, it's truly breaking ground.
Thank you, and I really appreciated the presentation, learning about this. Thanks.
Deputy Commissioner Sack.
Mr. Chair, Regent Sheehy, I just wanted to add to that. When we were putting this proposal together almost 3 years ago, I was invited to present to the mid-year meeting of the Montana Hospital Association, which included all of their hospitals. And so we were presenting the concept of this proposal, and embedded within that presentation was the concept of apprenticeships. And I remember one of the CEOs raised his hand and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. Because he said, when I think of apprenticeships, I think of pipe fitters or plumbers or those types of things. And we had quite a conversation, because Montana at that time had 0 apprenticeship opportunities outside of those traditional fields. And so between Healthcare Montana and Rev Up, and our partnership with Commissioner Busey and the Department of Labor, we're actually, I think, leading many states in the country with the development of these programs. So thanks for asking that question.
Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great presentation, Dean O'Brien. There's been obviously a lot of work on curriculum, a lot of work on partnership development, a lot of work on analyzing data and really reaching out to our communities and working with all the 15 campuses. I was a little bit shocked with the number that Deputy Commissioner mentioned, about 252 open nursing positions in just half of the facilities of Montana. So my question is, and you briefly mentioned it, but I hope maybe you can expand, is what are we doing to open the pipeline? You've done a lot of work in the pipeline, but what are we doing to get more Montanans and students into this healthcare field?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Regent Lozar. Regents, I think that one of the brilliant pieces of this grant is it's truly the homegrown concept. And many people are not fit to go into the healthcare field. And many people show up at Missoula College. I can only speak for Missoula College. I don't know about the other campuses, but they show up recently out of high school or not and think that this is, you know, their area. And they discover after taking Anatomy and Physiology 1 that this is not for them, or they discover well after that, and once they get into a medical center or field, that this is not the area. It's noble work. So identifying them after they have spent time in the with providers as a provider is certainly a step in the right direction. And then many people in Montana are place-bound, and this opportunity allows them work-based learning and distance learning. And we're seeing Great Falls College is doing a really phenomenal job of kind of a hybrid model, and we're seeing lots of hybrid models that involve part online learning and or distance learning, as far as kind of simultaneously, where you have a robot, you are a robot in the classroom, or you know, different ways to learn in a distance model. And I think that reaching out so that people can, and broadband is an issue for many of those learners, we'll just call them learners, but that is becoming much more common. Yeah.
Deputy Commissioner Sack.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and I would just like to add to Dean O'Brien's comments, and I would also like to give a shout out to Dr. Neil Moisey, who is the curriculum director for Healthcare Montana. Something that he and the faculty did is they redesigned the prerequisite semesters for all of these allied health programs, both the clinical and the non-clinical programs, so that, for instance, if a student, say, is pursuing surgical technology and doesn't get in, and they want to go into rad tech or something else, they don't have to repeat their prerequisite coursework. So this was amazing work, and I think from synergy standpoint, it's going to have a huge impact in opening up the doors for more students who want to pursue a healthcare career.
Any other questions or comments? Regent Berkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dean O'Brien, for this update. I think it's really exciting to see this apprenticeship take hold, and I think it's a real natural fit with what higher education's core mission is, and that's to serve the citizens of Montana. And I can't help but think of my own previous experience in the classroom this fall, you know, teaching seniors in high school at Glacier High School. And, you know, we talk about, obviously a topic of conversation was, what is your plans after high school? And I can't help but think of, you know, those students that are kind of doubting themselves that they can succeed in a college environment, but this is such a natural fit for that student, right? So we're talking about an economic driver in Montana, but also the opportunity for these students that otherwise don't have that potential to think they can succeed in a college environment to get that workforce learning and be a contributor to not only the state, but also our nation, for sure. And you touched on this briefly, but this apprenticeship model, it's really interesting to me. So can you talk about where is it stemming from? What does it look like in other states? And I really want to look at that opportunities for this to grow even further beyond healthcare.
Regent Berkey, Mr. Chair, Regents, thank you for the question. You know, the truth of the matter is, and Deputy Sec kind of touched on this, and Commissioner Busey from Department of Labor and Industry, Deputy Commissioner Sec, and I have the honor of presenting our work at the National Conference for the American Association of Community Colleges. This is new at the national level. This is a new concept, and it's, you know, like I said, or led to a little bit anyway, in so many ways it's a no-brainer, because why do we need to reinvent the work? And, you know, being, you know, I wake up every morning on my way to work thinking, okay, how can I be a good steward of taxpayer dollars today and make sure that everything that I do is being a good steward of taxpayer dollars or of student tuition, and that's part of the reason I'm so really excited about this. And kind of to touch on Regent Lozar, what you were saying is, we're in a situation where we have very low unemployment, and it's fabulous for families with food on the table, but it's a serious issue, especially in healthcare, but in other areas too, because you have people who are in positions who aren't trained for those positions. And with the enrollment issues that we're having, we're figuring out that we can recruit in an innovative way. And Allegiance Health Benefits, for example, we're working on a commercial right now, next week. They are advertising for employees for their medical billing program. And those, we call them students, they call them employees. They are given, they enter in, they have, out of a 40-hour week, they are paid for 40 hours. 10 of those hours are for learning, are for release time for the coursework and or study time, and the remaining 30 hours is work-based learning. And so working with our industry partners to have them do the recruiting, have them do or work with us to recruit, and really work together in order to get through this wonderful time economically, so to speak. We have to work with them.
President Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, maybe I don't even know to whom it goes, but I wanted to thank, I guess, Regent Johnstone for suggesting at the faculty conversation this morning that at our individual tables we discussed shared governance. And so that triggered a question, I think perhaps for you, Deputy Commissioner Seck, and that is when you described the really remarkable work, which I loved hearing about, of co-curricular revisions so that you get a platform that perhaps if nursing is not quite your bag, then maybe one of the other health fields is. In the context of shared governance, surely then you had to work with faculty senates, plural, amazing, or at least some faculty senates, did you not? It's a question, and I'm assuming I know the answer, but that had to have been a major complexity, right?
Mr. Chair, President Stearns, absolutely. In fact, a major piece of this grant was really bringing faculty together from across the state to work on analyzing and rebuilding curricula. And Dean O'Brien mentioned the practical nursing. One of the things that the faculty, in concert with the industry representatives, discovered is that we as a state were starving industry of practical nurses. And the reason we were starving industry is that the practical nursing exit was essentially an exit point in the 2-year RN pathway. And students compete for a limited number of spots across the state to get into these 2-year RN programs. And if a student is admitted, most likely they're not going to stop out to be a practical nurse. So even though they may have sat and taken the practical nurse exam, they would continue on and pursue their RN exam. So it was a faculty recommendation based on industry input that the practical nurse program really be a separate program focused on people who want to be practical nurses. Industry's excited because they've been having to hire locums at extensive costs. So that's an example of shared governance and really the faculty driving the process.
Regent Nystuen, thank you. A quick follow-up then. I look at our own faculty senate chair. I assume that the faculty representatives are there, and I know, for example, that that John DeBoer, chaired ASCRC and other curriculum committees. These things come back to you. You look at them and help expedite decisions for programs such as this. I'm trying to help all of us understand the shared governance component and the fact that you have streamlined it in a pretty admirable way.
Chair Nystuen, members of the board, The curriculum process is different on every campus, and usually if there is not a change in the learning or requirements, it doesn't necessarily come back before committees. Instead, it's left to the faculties in the content areas that have the expertise to make those adjustments in their delivery. Usually the only changes in content delivery that require coming back to a curriculum committee would be taking a previously live curriculum and putting it online. But if it's not something like that, if it's something where the faculty are just working out how they're going to deliver their content in a new way within the curriculum that's established, that's left to the faculty.
Regent Berkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this topic is really fascinating to me, and I think it's one that's going to have real good benefits. I'm really excited the direction it's taking as well. And just to connect it to our next topic about dual enrollment, I also see a lot of potential with connecting with our K-12 partnership right there. And what a great opportunity to expand these apprenticeship programs in high school. So is that on the horizon as well?
Regent Berkey, Mr. Chair. Actually, we've been working with Big Sky High School, part of Missoula County Public Schools. Big Sky High School has a health professions academy, and many of those students are interested in anything from pre-med and going on to med school to nursing to EMT. There's a wide range, and so finding ways to work with, it really is, with dual enrollment, we're blurring the lines between K-12 and post-secondary education, and now we've taken that concept to blurring the lines again from post-secondary education and workforce, and learning is learning, and finding ways to recognize how to make sure that there are high standards of that learning, and that our students and our workforce needs are being met.
Governor's Representative Smiley. Siri.
Thank you, Chair Nystuen. And just a little bit to respond to your question further, Regent Berkey, is that so if we think about work-based learning as, the whole spectrum, and kind of at the early grades, it's career exploration, and then you start to get into some of the CTE work, and an apprenticeship as kind of the pinnacle of work-based learning. It's the highest quality. It's a credential that you're going to get. So I think thinking of it as a spectrum, it really is important to think about how we're connecting it back down to K-12. And through the NGA grant that I've talked about before, we're trying to pull together dual enrollment and CTE and apprenticeships as well. But one cool opportunity that I wanted to highlight is also the pre-apprenticeship. So we have apprenticeships, which in the traditional fields can be several years, or in a healthcare field might be several months that you can get your apprenticeship completed in. But we also have pre-apprenticeships. And for example, there's I think it's Flathead High School has a pre-apprenticeship, so you can complete a year essentially of your apprenticeship before you even graduate from high school and get a head start. So I think it's a great model to, again, connect, as Dean O'Brien was saying, to really connect the academic world with the workforce training world, and enhance both, really. And so it's great that we're having this conversation, and I think there's a lot of good work happening between the Commissioner's office, the campuses, K-12, the Department of Labor, and it really has, the groundwork I think really was set by both TACT grants, and so I think a lot of credit needs to go to all of you who had a role in that. But I think it's probably something that we can keep talking about for and enhancing for quite some time.
With that, Dean O'Brien, we thank you for your informative presentation this morning and the great conversation with the members of the Regents and others. One comment, though, is this grant sunsets in 18 months, and I know we'll have a strong finish, but then it'll be incumbent upon us to figure out what do we do next beyond this, because all this work needs to continue on into the future. So with that, I'd like us to transition to the next item of business for the two-year committee, and it has to do with the Montana University System co-requisite remediation update. Deputy Commissioner Sack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm very happy to introduce Eric Rose from the Commissioner's Office, and also Bob Hoare is the Provost of MSU Billings. And as you know, for the last 2+ years, it's been a major effort of this board and the Commissioner to focus on improving student success in their first Gateway math course, and also reducing the amount of time that a student spends in remediation and preparing for the math course. So both Mr. Rose and Provost Hoare are here to provide you with an update. So I think we'll begin with Mr. Rose.
Chair Nystuen, members of the board, Deputy Commissioner Seck, thank you for the introduction. So this is a topic that I don't think is really new to any of you, but it's something that continues to be of utmost importance. And really looking again at the problem, which is on the next slide, of how big remediation really is in Montana. The number that I want to highlight here is 39%. That's 39% of first-time, full-time freshmen who are placed in remedial education and end up passing their math course within 2 years. That's a really low number. To think about the flip side of that, the 61% who do not complete their college level math course within 2 years, that's about equivalent to an entire freshman cohort of our 2-year campuses. So that's a really large number. And then looking at other states' growth, implementing co-requisite remediation, seeing that jump from the 20-30% to the 60-70%, I see that, and at first I was a little skeptical. Could a change like this really shift those numbers that large? But just keep in mind that 39% as we move forward and talk about some of the pilot work that's been done. The next slide really has kind of where we were and how we've gotten to where we are right now. So you can see that there's been several large events that have occurred in really bringing this work to fruition and meeting the Commissioner's goal of having co-requisite at scale by 2018. So part of that was creating a co-requisite implementation steering committee and really engaging the campuses on what they're working with now, where they're at in co-requisite remediation, and how they're moving forward. So this steering committee has representation from every unit of the MUS, and we had our first conference call last month, and we tried to identify what are the barriers that are existing and how does our office assist the campuses in removing those barriers? How do campuses assist each other in removing those barriers? What are some of the best practices? What have campuses identified as being workable solutions or things that are of high value? And then how do we implement those? From that, we discussed a little bit about some topics that will be for a regional meeting that will occur. From April 18th, 19th, and 20th, we'll hold 3 regional meetings across the state, starting in Billings, then Bozeman, and then ending in Missoula. I'm going to turn this on. Sorry. So in these regional meetings, the discussion topics will include how do we place students in remediation? What's the appropriate placement structure for this co-requisite design? How do we handle the resource reallocation, the staffing and logistical issues that come with decreasing the amount of developmental courses that we teach and increasing the amount of students that are placed directly into college level courses? And then how do we measure, how do we evaluate, what kind of data points do we need to look at? And then lastly, how do we engage non-math faculty, other discipline faculty, advising, registration, all of the student support services? How do we really reinforce that their role is critical in co-requisite remediation success? And then we heard several really encouraging things from the campuses. Every campus is either piloting, implementing, scaling, or planning to scale some form of co-requisite remediation, either in math or English. And with the various campuses, the different program offerings and scheduling structures, it's going to look different at every institution, but that's okay because they're all working to move to scale. And attached to the agenda, there's a summary that has more information regarding the steering committee and some of the campus work to date. But I would just want to highlight one instance at Helena College where they piloted Math 105, which is contemporary mathematics, in the fall. They had 36 students enroll in contemporary mathematics. Of those 36, 20 of them would have required remediation. But Helena College decided that every student, regardless of cut score, regardless of placement score, would enroll directly into the college level. So 20 of the 36 students would have required remediation. Instead of putting them into a prerequisite remediation course, developmental course, they placed them into 105 and gave them an additional co-requisite support component in the form of a lab, a math lab. Of those 20 students, 13 of them placed 2 levels below contemporary mathematics. So these are students who would have been part of that 39%. We would have seen relatively low success from these students under the old model. In this new model, 100% of those 20 students passed college level math. So taking that 39% and moving it to 100, which again, this is a pilot and it's small numbers, but really compelling numbers. And of those 20 students, their average test scores, their average score in the course was 5.9 percentage points higher than the students who placed above developmental level. So not only are they succeeding, they're outperforming students who, under the old model, wouldn't have needed remediation. And Helena College is seeing similar success in RIT 101 and RIT 121. And this story isn't uncommon. We're seeing similar results in institutions and early pilots. And so I'll turn it over to Provost Hoare to talk a little bit more about what's going on at MSU Billings.
Yeah, it has been an interesting development. There's Complete College America has helped guiding us through this, and we're learning from others around the country that have been there, tried that, done that. And there's really 2 success stories kind of buried in one here. One deals with the math pathways efforts that are underway. And that is an effort to try and make sure that students are on a pathway that will take them to the math course that they need for their degree, and not simply the first course available. College algebra, it sounds like a course that you might have had in high school if you took an algebra course, and it's often the course that students will grab and say, I'll try that one. But the success rates in college algebra are not good. They are not good. And in reality, even the Mathematical Association of America says if you're going to take one math class, it shouldn't be college algebra. College algebra prepares you for other courses, calculus, for example. So there's been efforts to try and steer students towards the correct math course and try and make sure that students are prepared for that math course. And that's where Eric mentioned that a large number of students do not make it through their gateway math course, and that's what he's talking about. The students place, through a placement exam, we determine how ready you are for college in mathematics. And if it's too low, the traditional approach has been provide them with some education that will get them up to speed so that they can succeed in that first math course. I know many of you know this, but that's time, right? That's not just effort, it's time. It takes time to pass that course. Then you've got to decide to come back to college and take that next course, and then you've got to succeed in that next course. And what we're learning from Complete College America and the Dana Center's data efforts is that the number of students that make it through that traditional step up to where they need to be is too low. So we are trying to create a way in which students can succeed immediately. And the reality is, if they're not ready for college math, you shouldn't throw them into a college math course without some additional support. And the COREC is the name of that additional support. At MSUB, Math 105 is newer on the books for us. This is one of our math pathways that does not lead towards calculus. It leads to a contemporary math course, which is valuable for a number of disciplines. And what is on the screen now are the success rates for that course. Those are higher numbers on each exam than you would see in a traditional college algebra course. So there's some success there already. But the word overall is on that, and that's because within that course were students who had placed at the developmental level and students that had placed at the college-ready level. So there's the mix there. If we go to the next slide, we start to break out the two populations. So the M105 only category, those are students that had placed into college-ready level. And you look at those numbers, and I'll give you a minute. I'm a mathematician. I know you're doing the math in your head, right? If the overall group, that's everybody, did better than the group that had placed above remedial, what did the group that placed within remedial do? And just to set the stage here, if you do not place at the college readiness level, it's an at-risk factor. Chances are you are going to have a struggle in college, and we're here to help. But the reality is the expectations on those students grade-wise is not the same as those that show up at the university more prepared. So the goal on this is to help get them through. It's not to actually have them succeed at a higher rate than those that were college ready. But the next slide shows that, in fact, that's what we saw. Those that were in the course that had a COREC associated with it actually outperformed their peers. So not only does this model work, it works remarkably well with respect to this one course, and it's the right pairing. It's interesting. The instructor who taught the 105 course and the instructor who taught the support course were two different individuals. This was an online section, and the next slide shows we saw similar results in a face-to-face section. So delivery format didn't seem to matter, and it was the pairing of the individuals and their devotion to helping these students get through that really was impressive. So this is our first success story. We are now, there is no prerequisite for Math 105. If you come to MSUB and Math 105 is the math pathway you're on, you will either take Math 105 with no COREC or you'll take it with a COREC. You'll never take a DevEd course for that. And the goal is to now expand this to other areas.
Questions or comments for Mr. Chair Tuss?
I don't have a question, but a comment. As you work on the administration of this initiative and one day looks like the next, I just want you guys to know that this is important stuff to this board, and you have the full support of this board. I think this is outstanding stuff. So thank you, congratulations, and keep working on this.
Thank you.
Chair Tuss, I recall you saying, as board, we are all in on this COREC, so I remember that. So,
Mr. Chair, it may be worthy of bringing Sheila's maroon tip suggestion back with the expletive awesome. That's great stuff, and just so proud of the group, the faculty that are making this happen. Thank you all on behalf of all of us in the MUS. We look forward to more success and how we can roll this out as best practice system-wide and see it continue to move forward. Thank you.
I agree, and I think Provost Makwa, you were clearly one of the pioneers of this effort. So while these guys are doing the heavy lifting, doing the reporting, I remember who was kind of one of the architects of all this too. So Regent Tuss, or excuse me, Regent Johnstone.
Johnstone, yeah. I just had one question. It's curious to me that the students that go through this do better or have performed better. Does this suggest a broader consideration of curriculum and how we teach? And it's fascinating to me that you've had this success. And at least one question that arises to me is, does this tell us something about how we're teaching generally and that we can learn something from this?
Regent Johnstone, I think the answer is yes. You know, exactly what it is we'll learn is a little bit of a question, but everybody is digging in. We have a chemistry course in which we're seeing similar struggles. Students get into it and they struggle early on, and the question is, how do you increase the success rate? And the default has always been put a prerequisite on there to get them ready. But now we're looking at perhaps adding a co-rec that'll support them through. You know, one thing I didn't mention is the co-rec piece of it isn't simply more math. It really is more than that. It is study skills. It is a chance to hear about what's coming and then follow up and reinforce some of the things that have gone by. And I think that same approach, especially at the freshman 100 gateway level, can cross discipline boundaries all across. So I believe, yes, we're going to learn a great deal. I'm just not sure exactly what yet.
Deputy Commissioner Sack.
Mr. Chair, I would like to go back to President Stern's comment from a moment ago about shared governance. This effort, the co-requisite effort and the Math Pathways effort, is truly a faculty-led effort every step of the way. And the Math Pathways effort, the first year was co-chaired by Jim Herstein, a professor from University of Montana. And now the Math Pathways effort is co-chaired by two professors from MSU, one on the 2-year side, Rich Rieberger, and one on the 4-year side, John Lund. And so that really gave birth, I think, to this work that's taken place now, and the committee that Eric referenced for co-requisite that just convened a couple weeks ago. The majority of those folks are faculty, and I'd like to highlight one of them, Joyce Welburn, who's standing in the back. She is the math professor here at Helena College who actually implemented the pilot and has been very active on both the Math Pathways and the co-requisite design. So thank you.
Other questions or comments? Other questions or comments? Dean Bingham.
Could I just quickly just say thank you to Joyce? This is her passion, and everything that she's done in her education has pointed in this direction. She is absolutely a phenomenal professor, and I think her help has really helped push us forward in a very significant way.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, what we as Regents would love to see is two things. First one is more success stories for more campuses. We'll look forward to next reports. And we're all game on to take a Math Path 105 test. So next meeting, bring them on. We'll see how well we do, okay? No. Speak for yourself. Okay, with that, what a great report. Thank you all. Let's go to our final agenda item for the 2-year and Community College Committee, and it has to do with dual enrollment update. Deputy Commissioner Sack.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, this is another success story. And it's really an opportunity to highlight two campuses, Miles Community College and MSU Billings, which launched two dual enrollment pilot programs, which provided tuition, basically no tuition. So they waived the tuition. And Amy Williams, who is our MUS dual enrollment program manager, will introduce it. Amy.
Wonderful. We do have a swap out today. Scott Anderson was not able to join us due to the weather, and so Cliff Coppersmith will be sitting in his stead. So I hope to be here before all of you, possibly in May, to give a more thorough program update when we've had time to pull our data and compile and do some analysis. But today we have an update from the panel about just what Deputy Commissioner Sack said about updates in dual enrollment due to these two outstanding pilots operational in the state. If we could go to the next slide. I would be remiss if I did not let the audience and the board know that Montana was chosen to host the first ever Western States Dual Enrollment Conference. This is really a feather in our cap. And it certainly shows that we are being noted as leaders in dual enrollment program management across the Western United States. Joe Garcia will be keynoting. The governor will be joining us. Melinda Karp, who has led the field in both quantitative and qualitative research on student impact, will also be keynoting. There are going to be 30 breakout sessions, and so if you have not registered yet, I do encourage you all. You can find out more information at nasep.org. So it suffices to say we haven't pulled our final complete numbers for spring yet and culled through them and found the errors and all of that, but it suffices to say we've seen some real substantial growth this year, and that's outstanding, and a lot of that is due in large part to the efforts on the campuses of the two gentlemen next to me. And so I don't believe they need a tremendous amount of introduction, so we'll start with City College and Cliff Coppersmith.
Thanks, Amy. Mr. Chair, members of the board, first of all, I want to send regrets and greetings from both Scott Anderson and Harold Olson, who are going to join us. They've been in great part responsible for the great success we've seen since the governor's announcement last summer. If you look at our slide that's going to come up on the statistics, I think this slide really encapsulates what the success has been, really a team effort. And I want to start with the faculty on both the college side and the high school side. Harold's done a really good job of finding the high school faculty both qualified and interested in doing this kind of work. Scott Anderson in particular has been very valuable in helping us expand the CTE portion of our offerings. Roughly the mix is about 60% gen eds and about 40% CTE. While quantifying the actual increase due to free tuition is not easily done at this point, we know that the announcement got a lot of attention by students and their parents, particularly in the SD2 in Billings. We assume in addition to that increase in students taking college courses for credit in the fall 2016 semester, that there was a related increase in the spring. As I mentioned before, Harold has done an excellent job in finding and recruiting high school faculty with the necessary credentials to teach college courses. And we're seeing a gradual growth in participation across several school districts, SD2 obviously the strongest. We're doing quite a bit with Laurel. We're exploring possible expansion with Hardin, where we do have at least some coursework going on, and we're also looking at Red Lodge and Park City. This next fall semester, in addition to welding, automotive technology, paramedic, EMT, and other areas in health, we're going to be offering for the first time the first-year anatomy and physiology course that will be taught by Dr. Connie Hahn, who's a former cardiac surgeon and now an educator at the Career Center. And she'll be teaching the lecture portion of the class over in the Career Center, and will be coming over to City College to teach the lab on our campus. Over the past year, we've seen a five-fold increase in dual enrollment with City College and our partner institutions in Yellowstone County and the region. And my goal personally with Scott is to expand the pathways, particularly for CTE. We believe the exposure that dual enrollment offers for students who don't come from families where there's a strong culture of continuing their educations, that provides them that exposure. And what Scott would have done if he was here today is provide some anecdotal accounts of the impact that the free tuition has had on students who otherwise would not be able to take this coursework. In particular, we have a minority student who's completed or will complete 21 credit hours through this program, which is significant. I mean, for myself as a dean and a parent, that's more than a full semester of credits towards their college education. There are still challenges that remain. Our biggest choke point is the availability of high school faculty to teach these courses. We're working on that one. We have a program with MSUB that's providing 9 graduate credit hours in English, art, and civics, political science, in order for high school faculty to get the 9 credits they need if they don't have that piece of the credentialing for teaching the college courses in the high schools. One obstacle that we were facing was losing the access for the free tuition, and just yesterday our chancellor has approved internally supporting the continuation of the free tuition initiative into the next year with our partner schools that we are already working with. So we're very happy to have that. So with that, that's the conclusion of my portion of this briefing, and I hand it off to Stacy.
Thank you very much. Chair Nystuen, members of the board, it's a pleasure to be in front of you today to talk a little bit about Miles Community College and what we're doing with our dual enrollment initiative as well. I also want to thank the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner and also Amy for their continued ambition to move the needle on dual enrollment across the state of Montana. And a message from our Board of Trustees for MCC is an equal ambition for us to continue our service in southeast Montana or eastern Montana. Just a few points. Back in 2012, we had an affiliation with 3 high schools. All in eastern Montana, pretty much from Broadus over to Colstrip. Back in the 90s, we actually started dual enrollment with Custer County District High School. But in 2012, we had 3 high schools. We were running right around 340 credit hours, about 60 head count students. In the last 5 years, we've grown to over 700 FTE and over 130 head count, and we have 7 schools now, all the way from Webo to Colstrip. And so we're trying to cover really a broad range. One of the things that we have also seen, similar to what Cliff has mentioned, is the issue with our continuation with high schools. It ebbs and flows because of the master's prepared educators in those smaller schools in eastern Montana. Just wanted to highlight a few things. This is our first year of our 3-year pilot program, which is to allow free dual enrollment, dual credit to students in Custer County District High School as well as Sidney High School. We have some students right now, there are no credit limits, we have some students right now who are taking up to 14 credits this term, anywhere from science classes, history classes, business classes. We have a quote up here from Bees Lucero from Custer County District High School. He was just an instrumental part of this program, and he talks about how the tuition-free program only enhances our relationship with MCC and other programs such as the Pioneer Express. Moving to the Pioneer Express segment, we did start that about 1.5 years ago. This upcoming fall, we'll have some students who will be actually moving from Custer County District High School in Sidney who have already started their dual enrollment pathway, who will be coming in to complete a semester or 2 with us that will allow them to complete a CAS in General Studies. And so we're really excited about that continued pathway that helps them matriculate onto us, but also helps them then matriculate onto a 4-year institution. Our trustees right now are very curious about this continuation over the next 2 years in our numbers. They're very curious about the matriculation back into our campus for enrollment gain and or tracking and finding out are our students staying in Montana and being successful as well in Montana and other 4-year institutions. So we're very excited to continue tracking that information. As you can see from, I think it's the next slide, or maybe it was the one before. Yeah, the next slide, you can see with Sidney High School as well as Custer County District High School, you can see that over the past year with the start of our free tuition and how much we jumped in our enrollment, headcount enrollment, especially with Sidney. They have been just a great partner and very eager to work with us. They're looking at a 3+1 model where hopefully a student could do 3 years of high school and then connect with us with a certain amount of credits and come out with certain college degree program as well as completing their high school at the same time. This is the beginning of that pathway, and that's why they're very eager to work with us. Custer County, the same thing. We jumped up 14 students in some various courses. So again, we're very excited about this program, and we have 2 more years to go, and we will continue to track these numbers and see how well this works for us. I do want to just give one quote from a student at Custer County High School. She says, "Thanks for the dual enrollment opportunity. I feel very prepared for college. My dual credit classes have been the highlight of my education with interesting subjects like humanities and government. Also, it's nice knowing that I already have a few college credits that didn't cost me anything to get. Thanks, MCC." This is from a student, and I'm sure President Stearns and Vice President Crady would be happy to hear, that is recently accepted in the Davidson Honors College at the University of Missoula, and she'll begin her courses in 2017. So she's very excited to get this start and go on to University of Montana. So that just shows the power of this program, power of dual credit. Thank you very much.
Questions or comments for our presenters? Regent Johnstone.
Thank you. And this may be a question that Tyler can answer, or perhaps you. Do we reflect dual enrollment in the enrollment statistics that we prepare? And if so, how is it reflected? So when I look at enrollment numbers for Miles Community College or City College, does that take into account, and if so, how?
Mr. Chair, Regent Johnstone, it's reflected just like any other enrollment. So if a dual enrollment student enrolled in one class or two classes, we count their head one time, unduplicated head count. But then for FTE, we take into consideration the number of credits, which is divided by a FTE denominator of 15. So it's identical.
Okay. It might at some point be useful to get a better understanding of how that's reflected in some of the enrollment numbers that we see. The second question I have is there a funding issue here? And should we be looking at both partnering with school districts or discussing additional funding to support this program? Should the school district, for example, provide some funding to the community college or city college to support the enrollment, particularly if we're trying to encourage it, and the idea of doing it on a tuition-free basis makes a lot of sense to me. We provide free education constitutionally required for K through 12. Why don't we support this particular type of education for K through 12 through public support? So, question and a statement, I guess.
Mr. Chair, Regent Johnstone, if I could, I think one of the values of a pilot is to see the response. The other move that we made 6, 7 years ago now, I guess, was a substantial reduction in the cost of those dual enrollment classes, removing fees and reducing the tuition in half. I think, in my mind, we need to look at sort of the trends that are created out of that and see maybe what is the best option for this board moving forward, including what potentially could be a combination of both. And we haven't talked much about this in public, but I suppose if when I look at the trend lines, if I could rewind that clock a little bit, we didn't get a huge spike of enrollment out of the reduction of cost. And I think the half cost, quarter cost, however you calculate it, may still be an obstacle for many students, and I think we're seeing that with the pilot programs. But it may not be for others, so we may want to look at how that works. I think to your question, yes, maybe, sort of. I think others would argue that we're not only collecting some state support on the FTE side, but the high schools are getting A and B on the state support side. So we've got to balance that conversation with what's comfortable with our legislative partners and see how that will merge. I think we've had some conversations about that recently. That the truth is it's sort of different at each school district across the state, how we do that, how we compensate individuals for helping with concurrent enrollment. I think when we have more data from the pilots, it'll be time for this board to sit down and OCHI to sort of evaluate what's worked, what hasn't worked, what are the barriers for students. And my guess is for some students, any cost is a barrier. And we've seen that with College Application Week, where we've removed a $35 fee and see a dramatic increase in applications. So at that level, without financial aid, without any of the other opportunities available to the traditional college student, I think there's a pretty significant barrier. And I think at some point we need to collect the data, do some analysis of that, and then come back to the board with possibly some recommendations of how all of those pieces intersect. It is sort of a complex picture with our partnership with K-12 and higher ed.
Thank you. I would encourage us to do that. I think this is an opportunity to, perhaps in a very fiscally efficient and prudent manner, address the cost of higher education. So,
Dr. Klippenstein.
Yeah. Chair Nystuen, Regent Johnstone, thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity to kind of respond to this. Our trustees are asking the exact same question. What is the kind of cost factor? Our foundation is also looking at how can they at some point come in and contribute to offer an offset the overall cost. Our overall cost really is somewhat minimal. Yes, it does count as an FTE, so it does help us with our Montana state share with our funding model. So there is some benefit. But we are going to continue to track that as this grows. And if this free tuition does continue to show the similar numbers as our first year, I know our trustees and our foundation will want to continue to work together to try to make this work. And I would be remiss not to mention that Flathead Valley Community College has been doing this for quite a while and offering some similar style of programs. And I know that President Karras has seen and will continue to work on expanding dual enrollment. And I'm really excited about Dawson's recent work in Dawson County High School with some recent developments there. So I think the 3 community colleges and their trustees will continue to assess this just along with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think at FECC there's some limitations. Is it 3 credits? I'm looking at Brenda. 6. Okay, 6 credits at FECC. So they put some limitations on how many for free. So let's see. I think Regent Lozar had a question.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I have one more germane point on that. And this is not a shameless plug for the conference, but there are many states that are working in this sphere of how to fund this enrollment. And there is going to be a state funding policy model breakout session, so I will contribute that to the greater good. But there are opportunities to learn about how states are innovating in this sphere in our own backyard.
Regent Lozar.
Thank you. I go back to the conversation we had at Northern last year around rural teacher shortage and the crisis and the emotion that was in that room. And I know we put together a rural teacher task force. But really what's at play in our rural communities is just getting teachers into the classroom. And I guess a bit of fear of mine is that if that's what we're trying to do in rural Montana is just place teachers, I'd hate for a program that's as successful as dual enrollment to not be able to be leveraged as much in rural Montana because of the challenge that both of you have spoken about, which is the 9 credit grad credit criteria. So, and I'm also kind of thinking about the conversation we had yesterday about the naming policy when we briefly talked about extenuating circumstances. So I think that's something that we need to be thinking about as a board and as OCHI of what can we do to expand this without impacting the intention of the program, the intention of the quality of the instruction, but expand this so more and more high school teachers and our rural communities, our tribal communities can access such a successful program.
Mr. Chair, Regent Lozar, members of the board. So the good news is this is very much front of mind at our office and personally day for me. We have, and I've been before you talking about leveraging Title II funds in the past, and we've finally moved forward doing that. So the project that Dean Coppersmith spoke about, bringing teachers to campus for 9 graduate credits, that's going to be, depending on where the school district the teacher is from, that's going to be absolutely free of charge. And those are in high demand areas for dual credit. And they're in areas where we don't have a lot of availability for graduate credit in innovative, flexible models like online, hybrid, some are face-to-face opportunities. So there are is it history or sociology?
Not yet on that one, but it's art, English, and civics.
Art, English, and civics. So these are high demand areas, but they're also common curriculum areas, even in our small and rural schools. So that's a big benefit, and it reaches the exposure piece as well. We're also working on online accessibility development. And don't forget that not all courses require a master's degree. So when we work on the other side of the house in Big Sky Pathways and CTE courses, we're really intentionally and consciously working to grow up the number of qualified teachers in that side as well. And so we've done significant outreach in rural and small districts in that area as well. So very much front of mind for our office.
Mr. Commissioner.
Keeping in mind, though, there's certainly no shortcut for the quality of those classes. I mean, sort of fundamental to dual enrollment is that these are truly equal course loads, coursework, curriculum levels, not only in the eyes of our institutions, but certainly in the eyes of our accreditors as well. And we need to make certain that we don't do anything to jeopardize that or all is lost. So I think it's a very fine balance between making the opportunity available some of what we've done in the past with the credit for credit coupons. The rest is to encourage a larger workforce in Montana to take those steps. And we've created some pathways to do that, including some exceptions while we're working in that direction. But we can't, at any level, sort of undercut the value of those credits, or I think the sort of dual credit component of this kind of collapses around us if those aren't valued. And not only valued as the credit, but also the learning, right? Because a lot of those are core curriculum that needs to move forward into the college experience. And if the learning hasn't occurred too at the right level, at a high enough level, then we sort of jeopardize that. So I think that's the key, is finding that balance.
You have follow-up?
Just one follow-up, maybe more of an idea or a comment, but and maybe it's something we're already doing, but it might be something we start considering in terms of developing curriculum for our teacher education programs, that there is a sort of track that is a dual enrollment track. So while they are in school before they go out teaching, that they can access those 9 grad credits while in undergrad.
Your response, Ms. Williams?
Yeah,
and then I'll get to Sheila.
Yeah, Regent Lozar and Mr. Chair. So in our work on the educator pipeline work, we have been playing around with the idea of putting front and center what the track is to teach dual enrollment as a continuing ed piece, including the CTE dual enrollment instructor. So, you know, again, very much front of mind with us. And then to follow up on the commissioner's point, quality of these courses is paramount, and so that's where the teacher liaison piece comes in, and pairing with college faculty. And also that's critical not just for our system, but because that's what research bears up yields the best fruit for students short-term and long-term. And so that's a critical point for us to continue to maintain.
President Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It just brings to mind 2 points that I learned in early conversations as president. One was with 2 different counselors or principals or superintendents on We Are Montana tours with Vice President Crady to rural high schools around, I'd say within 60 miles or so radius of Missoula. In 2 different instances, they acknowledged that they would like to do more dual credit, and they said partly it is on us, meaning their schools, districts, for not hiring and necessarily encouraging or facilitating the graduate work that would be needed for more of their faculty. They also put some of it on us, you know, their closest university, to be more collaborative in terms of enabling those faculty to have sufficient credits or the master's degrees. So that was a very beneficial mutual conversation of what you called, Dean Coppersmith, a choke point. We certainly have it right, you know, right when you're as close to our universities as you are. Number 2, I was very startled to visit with Superintendent Mark Thane of the Missoula schools and have him say, and I may not have the number quite right, but I think he told me that about 250, perhaps a little more, students in Missoula high schools last year took dual credit courses, but due to the cost, and they weren't in the pilot program, but we still think of it as very inexpensive, but at least 250 students did not get those college credits, did not enroll for them or take them. And I was mentioning that to Mayor John Engen, who was, you know, back straightened up. Well, as a city, he said, we have to work on that. Every single one of those individuals should have we should have figured that out. And it was just kind of all news to me, having stepped away from this for a time. But I love hearing this conversation, talk about front of mind right in our own city, to think of that number of students who did the work and they could have the credits, and that cost was a barrier. Thank you.
Regent Berkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this great update. As a future educator, it really warms my heart, especially when you shared that little anecdote about how that high school student said it was the highlight of her last 4 years. And I guess I'd just like to build upon what Regent Lozar said, and I want to make sure that our dual enrollment opportunities are available for all Montana students, not just the ones that have a university or a community college in their backyard. So I think dual enrollment provides a really good distance learning opportunity to expand that opportunity to those students in the high schools, because oftentimes, right, a classroom can only be as far away as your computer screen. So I think that's a good necessary step that we probably need to take in the near future here. I'd also like to say, that we are a frontier state, and making that higher education opportunity available to those students in those rural communities is of the utmost importance. And I look forward to Director McLean's update regarding the Rural Educators Task Force as well, because I think these two are really well integrated, and I think this is an issue we need to address with some urgency.
Thank you, Regent Berkey. Final word is yours, Deputy Commissioner Seck. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it, Mark.
I just wanted to put a plug in for a partnership with the Montana Digital Academy. They're already doing excellent online learning with high school teachers, and my recollection with my interaction with that group is that they already have some teachers who are master level teachers, and there may be a way there to get into the online with an existing program that is really quite excellent.
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. Final word is yours, Deputy Commissioner Seck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I just want to thank Amy Williams for her leadership and great work, and also our colleagues at Miles Community College and MSU Billings, as well as all of the other campuses in the system who are working on dual enrollment. We really are moving the needle. And also, I want to just recognize our partnership with the Office of Public Instruction, Superintendent Arnson, who is also very committed to the expansion of this effort, and particularly expansion of career and technical education dual enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you all for your presentation this morning. One other quick note. Dr. Karras is up at the Capitol this morning, but want to acknowledge FECC reaches its 50-year milestone here in the coming weeks, and so we start a year-long celebration of 50 years of community college at Flathead Valley. So if you get a chance, you might pass that on to your regards on to her. With that, Mr. Chair, the two-year committee stands adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Nystuen. Thank you for a good committee meeting. We're now at a point for a break in the agenda, so let's take 10 minutes. Thank you. to take your seats. Please start to take your seats. Oh, you're up. Okay, let's begin, and we will now start the Academic Research and Student Affairs Committee. Regent Sheehy.
Thank you, Chair Tuss. Academic Research Student Affairs Committee has met and discussed these items at some length, just for your assurance. Start with the consent agenda. Do any of the regents have reason to pull any of the consent agenda items off to place in action? Hearing none, those will go on consent. Next, the action items. We'll start with the level 2. You'll have an executive summary in front of you, and you also have detail if you go further into the agenda. Deputy Commissioner Seck, would you like to take over?
Madam Chair, members of the board, for the level 2 items, just a reminder to the board and the members of the audience, these items have been reviewed by the chief academic officers across the system and discussed there. They have also been discussed via the ARSA Committee of the board, via the conference call, and so they are ready to move forward. So to begin with the University of Montana, I would like to ask Provost Beverly Edmond to come to the podium. And the University of Montana has 5 items. The provost will briefly introduce the items, and Madam Chair, perhaps we'll go one at a time and see if there are any questions, and then the provost can continue.
Yes, some of these are related, and if you want to take those as a group, you certainly can.
Okay.
Thank you. I was thinking I was doing something a little different, so thought I was doing just the center, but we'll certainly be prepared because we talked about these. And what we have are several programs that came out of a collaborative effort at the University of Montana to look at where we had some strategic strength in moving forward. And we came up with a number of programs. One, the first one is the Bachelor of Science in Bachelor of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences, which is an opportunity for those individuals in the pharmaceutical program to get kind of a base degree in the BS from some of the credits that they're working on. And again, you can read it straightforward, and I'll be here to prepared to answer any questions. And I should also mention our dean is here along with staff if you really get into the depths of this. But I think it's pretty straightforward. We're trying to respond to the career interests and the demand of individuals in the pharmaceutical arena, and that's what the BS program will do.
Thank you. And The dual degrees are all somewhat related to this too, in a way?
Absolutely, and again, to not repeat myself, but we began some work looking at where we had some opportunity to strengthen our outreach for career support and looking at what we already have and what we're already offering. And so we saw a number of opportunities to do some combining programs with the three that you see in front of you, and they actually take existing course offerings and simply put them in a queue that allows individuals to get dual degrees, and so they kind of strengthen their portfolios of experience and credentialing as a part of it.
Any questions about the proposals from the University of Montana? Any questions for the provost? Hearing none, we'll move on. John, the next item.
Thank you, Provost Edmond, and Madam Chair, members of the board. Provost Tadine is at NWCCU training in Seattle, so I will provide a brief introduction for University of Montana Western minor and certificate, Associate of Arts, and Bachelor of Applied Sciences in Glass. And the University of Montana Western proposes these degrees. They would be offered in a stackable model and expanded upon the existing 3 courses offered at the university to include all disciplines of glassworking, furnace glass, torch work, fusing, casting, and cold working. And I might add that Provost Tadine did provide an attachment, which is part of the Level 2 documentation that talks about employment opportunities, wages, and just provides a little more background based on some of the questions that were asked during the ARSA call. Again, this is a program that's been vetted by the chief academic officers and was discussed on the ARSA call.
Thank you. Any questions for Deputy Commissioner Seck? You'll recall that we talked about this at our last meeting as well. Moving on to our next item, John.
Madam Chair, I would like to call to the podium Vice President Renee Para. And Renee is going to introduce the Montana State University Bozeman, Western Lands, and Peoples Center.
Yep. Madam Chair and members of the board, I'd like to introduce to you, to my left here, our Dean of the College of Letters and Science, Dr. Nick Ray, our Professor of English, Dr. Susan Colleen, and Dr. Mary Murphy, a Professor of History. These individuals have launched an important initiative at Montana State University on Western Lands and Peoples, and today we would seek the board approval to establish this initiative as the Western Lands and Peoples Center. The goal of this initiative has been to develop a hub for addressing critical needs of lands and people, regarding lands and peoples in Montana, the Western United States, and Canada. And the center would take advantage of the strength in the humanities, arts, and social sciences within the College of Letters and Sciences. These Dr. Ray, Doctors Ray, Colleen, and Murphy have worked with the University of Montana to ensure that there are joint efforts that they can explore and have explored, and they also have some a great interest in providing an environment at Montana State University that is the academic home for our students and faculty. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
I'd like to thank you all for coming again here, and we did hear what you said the last time, and so I'm going to just see if anybody has any questions. Remember that we received an informational item yesterday about the purpose of centers, and I think that that helped alleviate some concerns, certainly from this region. Do any of the regions have any questions for the university?
Well, I'm perhaps most of the reason why you had to come back, so I apologize for that. But I don't have any questions. I've reviewed the materials. I've had some discussions with the committee chair, and I'm supportive of approval of this.
Any other comments? And I'd like to say that we appreciate you coming back, but I also do appreciate Bill's questions and digging deeper into this issue. I don't think there's any regret in really looking at the items that are before us. So thank you, Bill, for asking the question, and thank you all for being here and for explaining things both at the last meeting, this meeting, and in between. Thank you.
Thank you.
That ends our action items and brings us to the information part of our agenda. The first item is the board governance mission parameters concept. Deputy Commissioner Seck.
Madam Chair, members of the board, as Deputy Commissioner Trevor teed up yesterday in his discussion about mission differentiation, we wanted to provide some additional information on that today. The Commissioner asked Elizabeth Turnus in our office to do some legwork on this, and she's here to provide an update and presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Madam Chair, members of the committee and board, I'm happy to be here today to share with you what we're calling a concept, and this is a concept for you to consider that would allow you to formally adopt a set of mission parameters into board policy, and that would help to guide the MUS as we've been discussing yesterday as well as last September. So as we go to the next slide, I'm just going to jump right in, and please don't hesitate to stop me along the way with any questions or comments. As Deputy Commissioner Seck said, Deputy Commissioner Trevor really teed this up yesterday when he was talking about elements of this framework in the Budget Committee. Today I'm going to focus just on the top row of the model, mission parameters. And when Deputy Commissioner Trevor shared this model with you for the first time last September, he spoke in depth about the need for mission parameters based on mission differentiation to make this framework successful. So much of what you see in here from me today should take you back to last September. It's going to look very similar. But even before last September, where you discussed this iteration of the framework, the idea of the value and necessity of mission differentiation in the MUS has been around for quite some time. On the screen in front of you is an appendix to the MUS strategic plan, the success agenda. And the success agenda emerged out of recommendations of a 2010 Regents work group on reform and reinvention. And in that success agenda, advocated as item number 1, as you can see, is institutional role differentiation. Specifically, it says to define distinct roles for the primary components of the MUS, doctoral research universities, baccalaureate master universities, comprehensive two-year colleges. So we know that mission parameters identifying differing institutional missions and roles are valuable for Montanans and the students of Montana. And even if you look around the nation at public higher education, you'll see this elsewhere. Nearly every system has a set of clearly defined institutional roles for their campuses, whether it's in board policy, state codes, or master plans. The majority have an identifiable and really transparent set of parameters that they can look to say, here's what our institutions are and here's how they differ from one another. And the reason for this is that, as Deputy Commissioner Trevor's been saying, mission parameters serve as a basis for many policies and operational practices. Admissions, allocation, tuition, compensation, programming, peer sets, everything is done with intentionality and tied to that overarching institutional role or purpose. So with the exception of the two-year colleges, which have embraced the comprehensive community college mission, the MUS lacks clearly defined mission parameters. Our institutions do have missions, and these are pictured here or articulated here by their board-approved mission statements, as well as on the next slide you'll see some additional statements. And while these are valuable, they don't tell you how to govern a single institution or a set of institutions within a system. They don't help you set tuition, allocate money, establish admission standards, or identify peer sets. And I would argue that these alone do not articulate the distinctness of each institution and the unique value they afford Montanans. So if you agree in whole or in part with that assessment, here's a new concept for you to consider, which would remedy this. And what I'm going to show you next is 4 institutional classification categories. These are exactly what you saw in September. The first is the 2-year college mission, which, as I mentioned, is already defined. That's thanks to the work done through the College Now initiative. 2-year colleges possess a comprehensive community college mission, provide transfer education, workforce development, and developmental and adult basic education, lifelong learning opportunities, and community development. They provide affordable open access admissions for all Montanans. The next is the 4-year regional universities. These universities offer comprehensive education primarily at the baccalaureate level in specific regional niches. They have embedded 2-year colleges. When approved by the regents, these institutions may offer select graduate level programs. And admissions policies at these universities define levels of preparation that match the academic focus of the institution. At the bottom of the slide, you'll notice Montana Tech is left out. From our discussions in September as well as yesterday, you probably know that's not an error, and we'll talk about them in a second. The next is the research doctoral universities. These are the flagships. There are comprehensive regional institutions offering education at the baccalaureate through master and doctoral levels. They have defined research and select graduate and professional programs. They're embedded with 2-year colleges. And again, they have admissions policies that define specific levels of preparation. So the next category, this is something a little new or different, the special focus 4-year universities. And this is a potential 4th bucket that we're suggesting be considered. Special focus 4-year universities possess a high concentration of degrees, typically 75% or more in a single field or set of related fields. And they have admissions standards specific to preparation levels necessary for success. Here's where we see, if you'll go back one more, Lindsay, Montana Tech at the bottom of the slide, you can see, here's where we believe that they may fit. Because when we looked at the other 3 buckets, if you'll call them, it wasn't clear that Montana Tech fit neatly as a 2-year college, a regional 4-year, or a flagship. So we're proposing this special focus 4-year. And on the next slide, here's part of the reason. You can see the heavy concentration of degrees in specific areas. What you're looking at here is a breakdown of all bachelor and master's degrees awarded at Montana Tech for the last 5 years based on zip code. Zip code is the Department of Education's National Center for Education Statistic classification system of programs. It's based on area of study and widely recognized. At the bottom of the slide, you can see that engineering alone accounts for 57% of all bachelor's and master's degrees awarded at Tech in the last 5 years. STEM, which includes engineering, computer and information sciences, biological and biomedical sciences, mathematics and statistics, and physical sciences, is 70%. Add health to STEM, and you get 86% of degrees awarded at Montana Tech fit into this category. So including Montana Tech as a special focus category is going to require some changes. As of right now, they cannot fully be considered a special focus university, but because of their tuition structure, research activity, existing graduate programs, and this high concentration of academic programs in specific areas, they better match other special focus institutions than they do 4-year universities or any of the other categories. So at this point, Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd like to ask Chancellor Blackheader to speak a bit more about Montana Tech, how they currently stack up as a special focus institution, and the impact this board designation would have on the university.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Ms. Turns, and members of the board. I do appreciate the chance to provide a little bit more detail on the concept of special focus institution and what Montana Tech is already engaged in terms of looking at this and what are some of the implications there. As many of you know, Montana State School of Mines was initiated in the Enabling Act of 1889 and granted 100,000 acres of land. So I'll move quickly from 1889 more towards the future. But this was created with a number of other School of Mines institutes at a time when there was great need for that. However, there are currently a limited number. And if you look at that peer group from yesterday's presentation from Deputy Commissioner Trevor, you'll see maybe even some of the schools you don't definitely recognize. But this is a well-defined and relatively small set of unique institutions. Our first graduates were in electrical engineering and mining. And since 1904, we have remained relatively true. I would say we've remained true to our mission for the last 115 years plus. Off and on, of course, but when you look at 86% of our graduates in STEM and health, I think it really points out how unique we are in terms of our programs offered. We're unique where our alumni work. We're unique with our reputation. We're unique with our return on investment kinds of numbers and our starting salaries that really look different than any institution within the Montana university system. As a result, we feel Montana Tech does not fit neatly into that concept of a regional comprehensive or as a flagship. And aside, we have no intention of trying to be a flagship. But this is a roles and mission, our peer groups, that was started in September of 2016 with a simple question mark next to Montana Tech. And some may not have noticed, but our campus has certainly noticed that. And we're trying to help OCHI understand what it means to be a special focus, and perhaps special focus recognized by Carnegie is different than what a Board of Regents, for example, would recognize as a special focus. I would point out, and this is a really important point, that as Tech goes through this process, this is not a gross change in our mission. This is a sharpening of our mission. And I would refer to you, and it was up on the board, of our mission statement that besides holding the record for the longest approved mission statement, I think, in the system, clearly defines our unique role as Montana Tech through exemplary undergraduate and graduate education, workforce development, research and service builds on a heritage in engineering, science, and technology, meeting the changing needs of society and the responsible use and development of natural resources. It is a unique mission statement, one that you will not find in many institutions around the country. And as was mentioned by Ms. Stearns, the definition of a special focus with Carnegie is that 70% of graduates in a specific field, a single field, or a set of related fields, and sometimes that's even considered to be accredited by a single body, of a accrediting body, which is not our case. We are, in terms of special focus, we feel the STEM plus health is where we are. And again, that may be a ways off in terms of Carnegie recognition, but certainly it could be an option for recognition by Board of Regents. So what are the implications on Montana Tech? I would say that when we look at how, and we're acutely aware of the resources of the state, and we look at the future probably fairly flat in terms of demographics and perhaps state funding, our responsibility to academic excellence in our world and national reputation. We have graduates that we know are working in 50 countries right now. We have put together a group. I've worked with the Faculty Senate, and particularly Senate President Dr. Scott Risser, to put together a working group. And we know that we're not trying to jump the approval of a board of something, but we feel it's really important for us to look at it at this time. We are putting that together. I just had an email from Scott late last night or yesterday talking about the members of that committee that will help us look at two things on a high level. Specifically, what does Montana look like relative to a special focus institution, and what are our goals related to that? And then as we have defined that, and as we have finished up a review of our strategic plan, then to work on a program prioritization process that would help us move to that goal of that special focus institution designation. And so it seems to make a lot of sense. You define what you want to be, you prioritize your programs and your resources to get there. So we want to do that as a campus exercise regardless. This is a committee that will meet probably for a year or two. They will meet weekly or bi-weekly. This is not a simple task. We plan to come back and talk about such things as setting of tuition, faculty and staff salaries, state funding allocation, our curriculum portfolio, reporting lines, faculty teaching research and teaching expectations, just as a few things as we work through that process to help us and to help you as a board to understand what it means to be a special focus institution. With our first task, though, we're trying to figure out a name. So you got to have a good acronym, I'm told, to have a committee like this, especially one that's significant. So I'm smiling because Scott's probably watching saying we came up with this initially, Workforce for Institutional Realignment Excellence. It's WIRE, so he at least has to say a word. We don't know where we're looking at realignment excellence as opposed to maybe program prioritization. As again, I just want to reemphasize, this is a sharpening of our mission, and we look forward to further conversation on it. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board.
Are there any questions for Chancellor Blackletter? Go ahead, Fran.
Chancellor Blackletter, it's exciting because we know Montana Tech is an outstanding institution. We're very proud of all that you represent, not just in Butte, Montana. But question, as you look forward, are there any implications, and you mentioned Carnegie, does this have any implications with national recognition that could set you up nicely for awards? Are there any other implications where this can help you?
Madam Chair, Regent Albrecht, certainly it opens opportunities for research collaborations. It opens up opportunities. I don't know about the awards so much, but I think it does put us into a group that people would look at us a little bit differently in the States. Again, I think in some ways we're recognized more nationally and around the world than we are in Montana. Further question?
Regent Nystuen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Blackletter, I think at Montana Tech currently you offer 1 or 2 PhDs right now. Is that correct?
We offer a single PhD. It's a collaborative PhD in material science with Montana State University and the University of Montana.
With this designation, would there be the potential to open that up even further for your curricular offerings, especially in the...
I think it does, and we have to be careful with that because that opens... There's a lot of work to go with that. But when you look at really the only public, it is the only public university in the country that is Carnegie designated special focus. It's the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. And they probably have, and I hope they're not watching, they probably have too many doctoral programs, but they certainly have a small group of specialized niched doctoral programs that helps them accomplish their mission as a special focus institution.
So would that be to your liking?
It would be, okay. Actually, at some point as we move forward.
Thank you.
I have a question. Chancellor, would obtaining this designation restrict your ability, should markets change, should things change, to offer different programs through your organization?
It might, in some ways. It might actually do that. I think that, again, I think we have done a decent job, and you could go through historical kinds of things, but I think certainly in recent years, and maybe even since the early 90s when there were some concerns about the institutions around the state, we have stayed pretty true to our mission, and I'm not so sure we want to go very far from that. I mean, I think that's important for us. I think it's important for the system to stay true to that mission, and again, we've written that mission down, and I believe that that's a pretty good description of where we want to stay.
And it strikes me that your mission actually defines your program prioritization.
It does, in many ways.
So with respect to where the other institutions are, you, by nature of your mission, are kind of ahead of the game on that piece.
Yeah, you probably are correct. I think we have been for a number of years, in terms of just when you start out as a school of mines, I think you start with that heritage and you build that, and as you stay true to that mission, it does define who you are. I'm very proud of our programs that are in our non-heritage programs. We have some great programs. Our nursing programs, our healthcare informatics, our safety and health, our ecology restoration. There's just a number of programs that they're just outstanding programs, but they do fit in among that mission statement that is pretty specific, and I would argue is not a mission statement you will see any other institution in the country outside of perhaps that peer group that you would see on the agenda from yesterday.
Regent Nystuen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Blackletter, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. So would this change any way of impact or adversely impact Highlands College?
I think that's a question that this wire group, or whatever we call it, has to go through and discuss. I think that it's a big part. Highlands College is a big part of our institution. We are already using that in collaboration. We consider Highlands College as just another college with our College of Letters and Science and Professional Studies and our School of Mines and Engineering. It's just another college for us. And so how that focuses and defines itself, I think, is a big part of our discussion. And we're excited to see how that can work together and help us with that mission statement, maybe more effectively than it is now. And, you know, we have a new dean coming on to help us with that, and he's listening intently, I'm sure.
Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question actually not for Chancellor Blackletter, but if we approve this...
Thank you, Chancellor.
If we approve this, how does this, if at all, change the mission statements for the other campuses? Does the committee expect that we'll ask the other campuses to relook at their mission statements to see whether they align with this overall mission statement? And then maybe a related question. I tend to be pragmatic. How is this really going to change how we manage and govern the university system?
First question, I believe, goes to the Commissioner.
Madam Chair, thank you. Regent Johnstone. I think the answer to the first question is, in board policy, we're continually asking our institutions to update their mission statements, review those mission statements. I do think it helps add some clarity as to what the board expectations are around their current mission. If we, in fact, sort of divide campuses up into these various brackets. And again, I don't know if these are bright lines. I think this is where they fit, and you know, I would be comfortable with people doing things outside on sort of a one-off where that's an exception, not the rule, but I think this kind of helps define the rule and what they look like. And I don't know if there's immediate response to it, but yeah, I think it helps guide us moving forward in what those various categories of institutions look like. What the second question was?
How will it affect, if at all, how we oversee and manage
Madam Chair, Regent Johnson, I think it does affect overall, because I think it goes back to Tyler's comments yesterday, which is how are we going to price those various campuses, and what will the tuition levels be? Ultimately, how will we compensate those campuses? It puts them in some organized categories that have the peer groups that we will then start to compare those to. I think this is sort of the piece that will give guidance as to what peer groups that your staff is looking at to move those toward. So I think it will have sort of a dramatic impact on how you move forward, because ultimately, and we didn't get into this too much yesterday, there's sort of maybe the articles take over, and I'm in no way critical of the articles, because I think a number of times we've been asked about, you know, for instance, in this legislative session, what will the impacts of the budget cuts be? And we've sort of generalized system-wide, but I want to make super clear that with the two conversations we're having, I think tuition will become very individualized within those three different segments. Now, we may try to level within those, but, you know, I don't think that there'll necessarily be an across the board, if the cuts would stay, the numbers we've talked about, 20%, I mean, we don't anticipate those kind of across the board changes. We anticipate that we will look at each campus, how they compare to their comparators, how they fit in these different brackets, and then start pricing. So I think it will definitely affect how you manage the university system.
This, I guess, would be a question for the chair. Relative to program prioritization, review of programs, authorization of new programs, attrition of existing programs, does the committee see this helping it and informing it with respect to those responsibilities?
Yes, it sees it as part of that. So this committee has been meeting in order to work on the mission part so that we can then talk about program prioritization within known entities, things that we've already defined what their mission is. I think that'll very much be a part of the program prioritization. And I think that question actually brings us back to Elizabeth's, where she is on her presentation. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and sorry for interrupting.
No.
Madam Chair and Regent Johnstone, if I may actually comment on one of your initial questions about how this impacts mission statements. It's actually in board policy that the campus mission statements are not only approved but reviewed by the Board of Regents, and we really see this mission parameters giving that a frame of reference. How do you review a mission statement or even approve a mission statement if you don't have some broader framework for which to judge it? So just a brief comment on that. And now back to where we're at and next steps. As you've picked up and as I mentioned in the beginning, what we're proposing here is that you formally adopt these mission parameters into board policy. Attachment 1 on the agenda, which we don't have to open up, but that is potential policy language on institutional mission and roles. Within that policy, the classification language is exactly what we had in the presentation. Some of it's been adopted from the Nevada and Utah systems of higher education. As I said earlier, there are a whole host of models to look at around the nation, but we selected Utah and Nevada because they have systems very similar to ours. They have research universities, regional universities, and two-year colleges. And we also felt as though what they had has been in line with what we've been talking about since 2010 and even earlier. So today this is just informational. But if you see this as a step in the right direction and in sync with what you're after, we would like to bring it back in May as an action item where you could vote to adopt it into policy. I should note that the language in that policy has not been totally wordsmithed, and we would expect that to happen between now and May, including the campuses in that process. So when we came back, it would be a refined policy for you to vote on if you so choose. The second step, if the first is approved as presented, would be to move forward identifying a detailed plan for Montana Tech. Because if you approve of Montana Tech being categorized as a special focus institution, they're going to have to move forward with some of those changes that the Chancellor discussed, which some of those changes will include board approval. So if it's the will of the board, I guess we're kind of looking for a head nod today, we would like to come back to you in May with that policy action item and an informational item consisting of a business plan of sorts for Montana Tech.
Elizabeth, can we pull up the attachment so that we can see it? You said there's wordsmithing left to be done, but this would be part of our board policies. It'd be given a number, and we don't know where it fits yet in the overall board policies based on this draft, but that's what we're envisioning voting on.
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay. Chairman.
Thank you. More of a statement than a question. You mentioned a head nod. You've got a head nod for me. I think this is important, and I think the differentiation with Montana Tech makes sense, and I certainly look forward to a deeper conversation about this at our May board meeting. What I don't think we're giving a head nod to is the question that Regent Nystuen asked. I don't think we're going down the direction of overtly or non-overtly authorizing a third PhD granting institution in the Montana university system. That requires a much, much deeper conversation. Other than the partnership that already exists with the University of Montana and MSU in material sciences. We had this conversation a few years ago about this, so I think it's important to go on the record to say that we're at least one regent is very comfortable with the direction that we're going, but not necessarily the direction that was perhaps implied with Regent Nystuen's question.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Regent Kirby.
Thank you. I guess I'll give you my head nod as well. And I do understand that we're putting our institutions into classifications, but I do want to emphasize that we as a board do recognize the uniqueness of the different institutions and the communities they serve. So like I think you articulately said, it's a framework for us understanding within these parameters, this is the mission of what you guys are here to serve for those communities. So I think it's a good policy, and I eagerly support it.
Madam Chair, I just had one question. What's the involvement of the campuses in the process to date? Has the committee received input from the respective campuses that will be affected by this?
Bill, most of the work has been done by OCHI, so the committee is processing this anew as well. I mean, we've been receiving reports, but I'll refer that over to Deputy Commissioner Seck.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I think it's early in the process, so obviously much of that work will be fleshed out. But
Madam Chair, if I may, Regent Johnstone, to your question, at this point, this framework was presented at the September 2016 board meeting. It was public. We haven't received any negative feedback from the campuses, I'd like to say that. But they've not been specifically engaged with drafting this policy or the language that you see before you. Like I mentioned, we expect that to take place between now and May. We've been, as you have probably assumed or realized, we've been very involved with Montana Tech in identifying where they fit into this puzzle. The other campuses, it was pretty clear and straightforward to us where they fit. Their existing missions and their structures sort of led to their alignment into these categories, pretty straightforward.
Any questions? Do you have what you need? Have you felt you got my head nod to move forward? I do caution all of our board members. I do think this is an important thing that we're doing. And while OCHI has done the work as OCHI should, we need to really get comfortable with this between now and May. All right. Thank you so much. Our next item is information item B, the Rural Educator Task Force update.
Madam Chair, members of the board, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you, Dean Bingham, for making sure I could get my microphone working. And as we visited back here, it dawned on me that this would be our last meeting together in this building with you here, and I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for your friendship over the years and for your service to students. I think it was Shirley Chisholm who said that service is the rent we pay to be living, and I thank you so much for your service on behalf of all of us and the students that we've had the opportunities to serve. You're going to be missed. Today I have a couple of items that I'd just like to visit with you quickly about. The first one is the AMA Council. The commissioner sent out invites to the council to convene just a couple of weeks ago here in Helena, and we had a very exciting, robust, and forward-thinking conversation. And it led to what we hope will be a conversation and a mission statement that will come to you along with suggested best practices as early as September. And with that, I have an ask on behalf of the council to all of our campuses this morning. And it is as follows. I would ask that you please submit to me a list of practices that you have found most helpful in the recruitment and support of our American Indian students. Please consider practices implemented in admissions, housing, financial aid, and academic advising, as well as in the classroom. Additionally, please consider how these practices could be brought to scale as part of an overall system plan to be submitted to the Board of Regents in the fall. And I would ask also that you please submit them to me by Wednesday, April 12th, so that we could have them for our next AMA Council meeting and consideration there. And with that ask, I would also like to say hello to my friend, Dr. Nate St. Pierre, who comes a long way to be with us this morning from Stonechild College. And Norma Bixby of Macy was with us this morning, and it's always good to see her, and it's a great partnership that we get to enjoy on behalf of student learning together. And so with that, I'd like to move on to the task force work around the recruitment of rural educators. And what you have up here and what you may have gotten well ahead of the meeting was the white page that signifies where the task force is. And there are just a couple of pieces that I would like to hone in on around this work this morning. The first one is number 4, and that speaks to Education 101, which is an introductory level course. And the task force has moved forward very robustly around a conversation that this is a course that we believe is a best practice, and we believe it could be implemented successfully by our campuses across the Montana University system as a dual enrollment course. And Montana State University was the very first campus to roll this out. And to support their efforts to make sure that we had a group of teachers ready to teach Education 101, one of the projects that I've been able to take on during my tenure at the Office of the Commissioner is the oversight of the Title II grant. And so we sent out our RFPs last fall, God bless you, Amy, and we got a wonderful grant proposal back from Montana State University, and what it has allowed us to do is to provide support for 14 educators from rural Montana to receive graduate coursework so that they could teach Education 101 to their students all across the state. Now, to the conversation that came to the Board of Regents last May, I want you as a board to know that every one of those administrators that came to the table last May have been involved in that outreach and conversation on behalf of Montana State University, and I'm hopeful that each of them and their faculty members will take advantage of this opportunity that we believe is going to serve as a critical piece of our pipeline for the recruitment and retention of rural educators. A few moments ago, I saw my good friend Marco Ferro. There he is, back there. And we have worked with the school administrators of Montana, with the Montana Rural Education Association, and with our campuses on all of the pieces of this conversation. And to all of the campus leaders here at the table and out here in the room, I want to thank you for your support of this conversation. And I want to tell you that we had 16 folks on the phone line at our last task force conversation. And so these pieces are moving forward by design. And your folks who are in your schools of education have made this conversation a priority on behalf of the public K-12 schools that we serve across the state, and really at your behest, Mr. Chair, and your call on them last May. And so I think any conversation about the work that we have done and the work that we're about to do would be remiss without a great thank you to those folks on our campuses who do the heavy lifting, and they've given the time, and we have spent very little money and time and resources as far as what it would take moving and transporting people to make these things happen, because we've been doing it all on the phone. And so we've been very mindful of the fact that resources are at a critical point for all of us. So I have my friend Marco Ferro back there, and a couple of weeks ago, I want to let you know we signed a memorandum of understanding with Educators Rising, and it is a career and technical student organization, a lot like Future Farmers of America or Business Professionals of America. And what it is designed to do is to create and support a pipeline of K-12 students into their matriculation as school teachers across the state of Montana. And we hope that this Education 101 piece will fit nicely into that Educators Rising work. And right now we're working with Nigel Waterton of Montana State University and his team there to bring together these administrators, some of whom presented to the board in May, and from 8 other schools who will be a part of this 101 cadre in June for a meeting on the Montana State University campus, where we will help the two conversations dovetail, and we hope to see at least 10 schools launch Educators Rising by next fall so that we can grow this pipeline. And one of the other exciting pieces around this is that this, coupled with FCCLA, which is another career and technical student organization, will allow students who are in this pipeline, who have developed or demonstrated an interest in becoming educators, to attend the very first day of the MEA-MFT Teachers Convention, and we're going to develop a teaching strand for them alone, and then they will get to go that Thursday evening and celebrate the Teacher of the Year recognition ceremony. And we think that it's just going to be a really unique Montana-made pipeline effort on behalf of the K-12 schools and the students that they serve across the state of Montana. So very exciting. Now, we're doing a lot to fill up the pool, so to speak. And we need to make sure that on this end that we plug the pool or that we fill any cracks so that we can actually, at the end of the day, retain our teachers. Now, Dr. Stearns spoke so eloquently a short time ago about the fact that when she was talking about dual enrollment to some of these schools, that they said, quite frankly, we may have missed the boat here, and maybe they didn't know what steps they needed to take. And I would offer, through the conversations that we have had on the task force and through my partnerships and friendships with folks from MREA to SAM to MEA MFT and to the folks on the campus, that we have a real unique opportunity in Montana to use our school administrators to plug the pool, to make sure that they are the group that has all of the tools in the toolbox by design to provide the support mechanisms and to provide the infrastructure around things like dual enrollment and to provide the infrastructure around making sure that there's a seamless pipeline for our K-12 students to come into the Montana University system. Our partnerships with K-12 are very strong, and so we're working with our school administrative programs and programs in ed leadership on our campuses right now, and we hope to get a proposal for some of our Title II monies that we as a state had that were unspent from last year to support our school administrators in their induction, mentoring, and support of teachers all across the state of Montana. And so we think that we have some really neat things happening, and they're happening by design rather than by chance. And so when we roll out our ultimate suggestions and recommendations to you in May, we hope that you'll see a conversation around growing the pipeline, building and supporting the pipeline, and then ultimately making sure that we have, as a state, the ability to make sure that that pipeline stays put right in the Big Sky State. And then one other piece that came to light, and I know that the Superintendent of Public Instruction spoke this morning, was a conversation around Macy and Indian Education for All, and we have had the opportunity, Dr. Seck and I and Eric Rose and folks from Gear Up and Educational Talent Search to meet with members of the Indian Caucus and members of the Education Caucus. And one of the most profound things that came out of the Indian Caucus meeting was a notion that we have folks out there in our K-12 communities teaching our students the First Peoples language with a Class 7 license, and that we have an opportunity to, through our campuses, work to provide those individuals with prior learning assessment opportunities to grow their entrance into a Class 1 or a Class 2 teacher's license. So we have some wonderful things going on, and the conversation around dual enrollment with Regent Lozar and with Dr. Stearns and with all of the folks around the table is very exciting, and I will use that to move into the pipeline piece and the pathway. Now, the Perkins Grant supports the development of career and technical education pathways, and we are very excited that we found a way to make sure that the education pathway would be the very first one that the Perkins Group would work with us to develop. And what you have here is a draft. We believe that it's going to be an ongoing, useful document that is adaptable by any organization, by any institution, and by any community. But we hope that it provides a snapshot for a student and their mom and their dad or their school counselor to what a student will need to do and what opportunities exist across the state of Montana when it comes to making sure that they have the tools in their toolbox to go to become a teacher in the Montana school system. And we hope that dual enrollment is a robust piece of that. We know that the Education 101 course will lend itself to that clearly. We think that there's an opportunity through Family and Consumer Science 101 on the Montana State University campus to make sure that that's a piece of our conversation going forward. One of the other pieces that I will close with is this notion that if we do this right, and if we do this right across the state of Montana, and we embrace this conversation, at the end of the day, our students will leave our high schools with what we call industry-recognized credentials. And the Educators Rising has within their confines 5 of these minor credentials that a student can graduate high school with. And they're working right now with ACE to determine whether or not a student, if they complete all 5 of those modules, can get 3 college credits that will be universally transferable. We think that's remarkable. We think that that's going to make sure that when a student leaves one of our public high schools across the state, that they can demonstrate to an employer and perhaps to their institution of higher learning that they have not only the coursework, but they have a credential in hand that will lend itself to the demonstration that they have the aptitude and the ability to succeed in the field of education. So with that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I will close and open it up to any questions that you folks may have.
Thank you, Director McLean. Any questions? Seeing none. Is there anything you need from us with respect to your ask of the institutions for the information by April 12th?
I think just a reinforcement that this is a priority for the Board of Regents of the state of Montana and of the Commissioner of Higher Education of the state of Montana. We hope to bring to you a profound and bold effort when we present to you around our overall AMA work in September. And so I think just the articulation that this is as much a priority for every single one of you as it is for every single one of us who are a member of the AMA Council that the Commissioner has put together.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item is the revised curriculum proposal form, item C. Ms. Turnus. Going to skip the middleman in terms of time.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee and board. Here before you, as promised, is the form that is used for all new program proposals. We've been working on this since about last summer. We've redesigned it significantly. This form emerged from a combination of our existing MUS form, NWCCU substantive change requirements, as well as a model from the Idaho State Board of Education that they use for their program approval. A quick note on why we selected Idaho. When we were looking at their form, we found that they had a request up front in their materials for a lot of the information that we and you are asking down the road, but that's missing from our current submissions. You'll notice it's significantly longer than before. It's now 9 pages compared to the 3. But the questions are much more explicit, allowing for what we hope is shorter, more concise answers. We've also got word limits on there to help guide that. And even though the board wasn't requesting all of this information previously, it was still being asked by the asked to the campuses by the accreditor. They were being required to provide this information in the new program approval process down the road. And so that was a specific request of the chief academic officers from the beginning, so that we align these different requirements so that they're only having to do paperwork once. So I just want to point out in the form a few things that, a few new elements that we're especially happy to see in here. The first is on page 5. And it's question 13, and this is a question explicitly asking for the fees to be associated with new programs. Your tuition and fee approval, or your tuition and fee approval policy allows for this already. When new programs are approved, the fees and tuition associated with them are also approved. Here we're making this transparent. Everyone can see it beforehand and know what those are going to be. Also on page 5, you'll see that we now have a spot for academic officer signatures. This doesn't require, or this doesn't change the process any. It's always been required that these officers approve of this as it moves on to the next stages. We're just documenting that now. On page 6, is the first page of our detailed budget form. And this comes specifically from Idaho's version, and it's many of the questions that are being asked here, or the items that are being asked here, are also in narrative form in the previous form. But here it combines it all in one place and provides net values, which we think is very useful. One exciting thing to note is that even though this form has not been approved and is not currently being used at the board level, campuses are already asking their faculty and proposers to utilize this for their own benefit. And so they've been utilizing this on their campuses already. On page 8, at the end of the budget form, there is a line for the chief financial officer's signature. This ensures that the fiscal officer on the campus is a part of the process, or at least aware of the development of new proposals and what those resources and expenditures may be for that program. So this form is before you, not as informational, but we did want to share it with you and make sure we received your feedback before we roll it out. It's been vetted, as I mentioned, since last summer by the chief academic officers across the system. It's also been shared with the chief financial officers who have had a chance to provide their input, which we found extremely valuable. So barring any significant changes, we hope to roll this out immediately so that campuses can begin using it. We'd envision a soft rollout. Many campuses have already begun and completed their proposals for May. For those who haven't, they could use this form, but for those who have, we would not ask them to go back and redo that. But we would expect it for all new proposals in September. With that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Turnus. Any questions? Regent Johnston.
The meeting will be over soon, and then I won't be able to ask any more questions. But and my wife will suffer from me over the weekend. I just had two. One, I was curious as to why we just had a sign off from the campus financial chief and why we didn't get a sign off from the chief academic officer that's required to review these, just out of curiosity. If this is the form that's going to come to us and it's going to come to us with a sign off from the financial officer, why wouldn't it also be there be a sign off from the academic officer, question one. And then question two is, I know this is designed for new programs, but I remain curious as to what formal process we have to review existing programs. It's a different topic. I don't want to get into it today, but at some point I'd like to have a conversation about that process. Is there some discipline, some rigor, some formal process? If so, what is it and how is it working? Thank you.
Ms. Turnus, can you answer the first question?
Madam Chair, I'd be glad to. Regent Johnstone, to your first question, we are now asking for the academic officers to sign off. Additionally, we're asking for the presidents and also for our affiliate campuses, the sign off of the academic officer and president of the flagship to sign off on that. So you'd see all of that in addition to the financial officer's signature. In regards to question two, I'm very happy to report that we are thinking along the exact same lines, and we really see this as a process. With this form, this really sets us up to move to that next step. How do we evaluate these programs down the road and how well they're doing? This form better allows us to do that. Our existing form, as you all know, wouldn't have set us up very well to answer those questions that you're asking about the success and viability of programs down the road. And so those are discussions that we are having, and that really is our next step. And I'm sure Deputy Commissioner Seck would love for me to add that he recently created a task force to begin work on that process.
Deputy Commissioner.
Madam Chair, Regent Johnstone, the Chief Academic Officers, Elizabeth and I met on Wednesday from 3 to 5, and that very topic was one of the things that we talked about, so we are working on it.
Regent Albrecht.
I really like number 6 there, the similar programs, because it does help to address exactly that. And I like letter B with describe any efforts that were made to collaborate with similar programs at other institutions. If no efforts were made, please explain why. And I would like to, well, I'm jumping ahead, but I would like to add that particular line to the intent to plan as well. Form, it's not on there. So this is great, thank you.
Deputy Commissioner, is that changing to the intent to plan? Can we do that through our committee, discuss it, and bring it back to the board?
Madam Chair, members of the board, that is correct.
Will you put that on your list, or shall I put it on mine? Both. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Regent Lozar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know you want to get moving forward pretty quickly on using this form, and I just want to comment on the process that OCHI has gone through. I think it's the perfect process in the sense that they got feedback from the campuses, they did best practices, multiple states, spoke with their accreditation agencies. I think captured almost perfectly the the trends and the types of questions we ask in every one of our committee meetings on these new proposals. There's a section literally for every kind of question that we ask. And I just want to say I'm a big supporter of this, and kudos for putting this together so quickly.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Turnus, thank you. Our next item, we're on information D. This is the STEM scholarship update. Mr. Murph?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have a very brief update regarding the procedural changes to the STEM scholarship program. As you know, we had some funding issues in this last academic year, and so we are looking at making some changes to the process to avoid those issues in the future. This infograph here shows the flow of the award process and the timing. It's pretty straightforward, so I'll not walk you through it. But basically what we're doing, rather than trying to project the amount of funding at the close of the fiscal year and before the Lottery Commission meets in September and then awarding those scholarships in that fall, based on projections and estimates from lottery that might not come to fruition, might not materialize, going forward we're going to wait to award the funds until the academic year after we receive the funds. So we receive the funds in December each year. At least that's what we did as far as the first year. And that's about the only year that we have in the pipeline. So we'll assume we'll get them again in December. So instead of trying to award for that fall, we're going to get the funding in December. So December 17th, for example, we'll get it. We will then award the scholarships in May of 18 for the fall semester of 18. In addition to that, the scholarships that are given, they're $1,000 the first year, $2,000 the second year. So we're going to make sure that the funding dictates the number of scholarships that are awarded. So you figure it's $3,000 per student. If we get $51,000, that'll be 17 students that'll get the award. If we get $510,000, it'll be 170 students that get the award. So no more projecting, more trying to predict the funding. Bottom line is we're going to never again award a STEM scholarship until we have the funding in our hands, because we don't want to be going up looking for a supplemental appropriation again from the legislature. That ends my report, and certainly stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ron. Are there any questions? Thank you. Our next item is Item E, Level 1 Memorandum. We've compiled a Level 1 Memoranda for October, November, December, and January of 2017. The approval for these items has been designated by the BOR to the individual institutions or the Commissioner of Higher Education. The items on the list today have already been approved and are now being shared for your notification. Any questions? Next, we're on Item F, the Intent to Plan proposals. I'm going to ask Deputy Commissioner Seck to speak to these.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've asked both provosts to speak very, very briefly to each of these, beginning with Provost Makwa on the Global Health Minor, just to provide a very brief 60-second introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Deputy Commissioner Seck. So the Global Health Minor is a program that we're proposing. It's an interdisciplinary minor that will focus on understanding associated cultural, social, economic, and environmental factors related to health. One of the most popular areas of study at MSU is the pre-health sciences. A major goal of the Global Health Minor is to support training of students to better equip our students to address health disparities in developing countries as well as among disadvantaged populations in the United States. The World Health Organization identified the need for doubling the investment in the global health workforce with an estimate of 40 million new health care workers required worldwide by 2030. This is an interdisciplinary program that involves our cell biology and neuroscience department, Department of Molecular Biology and Immunology, our modern languages, and in our numerous areas in our Education, Health, and Human Development College.
Any questions for Dr. Makwa about the Global Health Minor? Seeing none? Oh, President Stearns.
Just with your forbearance, I'll make it quick, but I was looking at a brochure the other day of the University of Montana's Global Health minor. Are they very similar? I mean, I'm not at all worried about duplication. The world could use plenty of global health minor prepared individuals, but just out of curiosity, are those somewhat similar? Are they different? It's a matter of curiosity.
Right. You're right. The University of Montana has a minor in global public health, and so our faculty have been in communication and interacting with faculty at the University of Montana. As I understand, the University of Montana's focus is on policy and policy matters. There are certainly some overlap, but our primary focus is on biomedical, language, and cultural, as well as food and agriculture. In our program of study, we offer about 47 courses that students can select to help create this minor. I think the count is there's about 14 courses that overlap with courses that are taught at University of Montana. And of course, both campuses already offer both of those courses, and many of those are the lower level courses that both of our campuses need to be teaching. So while there is some overlap of the two programs, we think that both programs have enough of a unique focus that helps both campuses better serve the needs of our Montana students.
Any other questions? Regent Albrecht.
So, alluding to my earlier question about collaboration, so what do you see as potential collaboration with University of Montana in their program? And again, because this is a minor, I'm not so concerned about the duplication, and especially because you already have some of the offerings there, and you're just helping to quantify or clarify that, correct? So, but what are the potential collaboration opportunities between the among institutions?
I think an important component of even asking for examining collaboration is it encourages, incentivizes our faculty to start communicating more. And so this is another good example where faculty from our two areas have begun interacting. Often those interactions lead to research collaborations. As this proposal evolves into a full proposal, we have plans for both faculty groups to continue these conversations and to work together. That has initiated, that has started, but the concept is once the intent to plan moves forward, the faculty will work even closer. I look forward to seeing what they come up with. Perhaps it's opportunities for offering some courses jointly. I certainly expect there could be some research opportunities developed for our faculty and our students to collaborate.
And as a follow-up, I also think that this is an opportunity for professional development. I mean, if it makes sense to be offering these at two universities, that you could even do some teaching exchange, for example, or some coaching, or et cetera. And I just think that it helps to keep the excitement and the learning in professionally developing as faculty. For just what an opportunity within our system to do that. And I would like to see more of that kind of collaboration and exchange opportunities.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up.
Madam Chair, continuing with MSU Bozeman, we have from the November 16 intent to plan, individual interdisciplinary PhD. And I'll give Provost Makwa a second to find that and provide a brief introduction.
So the individual interdisciplinary PhD program is structured very much as its name indicates. More and more, there's demands and there's needs for students to have advanced graduate degrees in interdisciplinary areas. As our universities are structured today, we have many different individual disciplines set up in our departments. But for students to pursue advanced degrees that cross disciplinary lines, it's not always easy. So the intent of this program is to provide students an opportunity to pursue a doctoral degree that combines the expertise from multiple departments in our campus. So when we speak of collaboration often at these meetings, we're thinking about collaboration between campuses and universities. But fostering more collaboration within our own campuses is also valuable and important. And so this will provide students the opportunity to work with multiple departments, faculty in those different discipline areas, and to craft a PhD program that will fill a specific need and with a specific purpose. We don't anticipate the enrollments to be extremely large. Again, it's more of an opportunity that we're providing our students. There's no additional courses, there's no additional administrative structure. It's more of meeting the needs and requests that we're receiving from our students.
Any questions for Dr. Makwa? No? Dr. Makwa, do you have one more? Electrical engineering?
Thank you. So the PhD, we're requesting to pursue the development of a proposal for a PhD in electrical engineering.
I'm going to interrupt you here to let the board know this is off the January notices.
No problem. So Montana State University currently offers a conglomerate PhD in engineering. And so back in 1996, the university aggregated PhDs in electrical engineering and in chemical engineering and materials engineering, as well as engineering mechanics. Over time, our enrollments have continued to grow, and we're at the point that if we would want to continue that growth and sustainability in our electrical and computer engineering, we feel there would be great benefits to the program to be able to offer a standalone degree in electrical and computer engineering. And so this proposal is to essentially ask a request, or to request to change our option, our PhD in engineering with an electrical and computer engineering option to a standalone PhD in electrical and computer engineering. We currently have, in the last few years, about 14 graduate students pursuing that option. We have about that many master's students in the program as well. So it's a very healthy, growing graduate program, one of our strongest programs at our university. Our faculty feel strongly that we would have an opportunity to attract even more students and higher quality students if they could come to the university and have the PhD in electrical engineering as their credential rather than a more general PhD in engineering with an option.
Any questions? Regent Albright.
Sorry to sound like a broken record, but I would like to know if you see an opportunity for to work with Montana Tech in this arena.
Thank you, Regent. Very good question. And we certainly do. In fact, we're embracing that opportunity. Back in January, myself, the Dean of our College of Engineering, as well as our department head in computer engineering, met with the Provost Abbott at Montana Tech, as well as Dean Knudsen, their Dean of Mining and Engineering College, and their department head in electrical computer engineering. Deputy Commissioner Seck attended that meeting, and we had a very good discussion about how this program could strengthen the offerings in both of our campuses. So we came away from that meeting with three elements that will help us advance that collaborative relationship. One, we recognize and we want to strengthen the opportunity for our students and our faculty to collaborate on research. Two, we want to make sure that we develop some guidelines such that faculty at Montana Tech can participate on research committees at Montana State University, serve as on committees for PhD students. Three, we would like our faculty to examine opportunities for offering graduate courses synchronously or asynchronously, so we could leverage the expertise from both campuses. And so as a follow-on from that meeting, we will be convening a meeting. It probably doesn't do the concept justice, perhaps a summit for all of our faculty in electrical computer engineering from both campuses to delve into this and to really address that charge, if you will, in terms of coming up with a good model, a strong model for collaboration between the two campuses. And that model will be described in detail in the full Level 2 proposal. Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Dr. Makwa? Seeing none, we're going to skip back to the November items, the Center for Translational Medicine.
And Madam Chair, excuse me, Provost Edmond is here and will speak to that.
Thank you, John. Welcome back, Provost.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the University of Montana is pleased to propose the establishment of a Center for Translational Medicine, which will establish a cross-department and college multidisciplinary research center to assist faculty and staff and students in the translation of pre-medical research discoveries from bench to bedside. This center will work across the Montana University system to facilitate the ability of university researchers to better advance the clinical and/or commercial potential of their basic science discoveries. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, and I also have our Vice President for Research here to assist.
Any questions for Provost? Seeing none, thank you. Our next item is Aviation Maintenance Technology, Helena College. Dean Bingham, will you be addressing that?
I would love to, Madam Chair. Thank you. Our aviation program, as you may know, has been here since 1939. I think that predates most people in the room, if I'm not mistaken.
Even me.
The aviation program is heavily regulated by the FAA, and periodically we are required to go through and take a look at our curriculum and make sure we are still in compliant with the FAA requirements as they come out periodically. And so this program is really split into two different areas. One is power frame and power, and the other one is airframe. And an individual can actually get a certificate or actually get a degree in either one by taking the FAA test. But Helena College does not have a certificate that we can offer out a CAS for each one of those components. And so really this is just to fill that gap. So a student who decides to stop out could finish one, get a CAS, and then take that FAA test, walk away with a complete certificate and degree, and then come back if they want to, which 90% of them do, and finish out the associate degree.
Any questions for Dean Bingham? None? Dean, this may seem like a long meeting of goodbyes, but as your last appearance at the committee meeting, I'd like to say goodbye and to thank you for many years of service. And unless John tells me that I've missed something, that ends our ARSA Committee agenda, and the ARSA Committee is adjourned.
Thank you, Regent Sheehy. Here we are. So we will now go into the action part of our agenda, and we will begin with the Budget Committee. And as we look at the Budget Committee agenda, we'll go down to the consent part of that agenda, and we have got items A through G on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
I'd so move.
Regent Nystuen, thank you for the motion. You've heard the motion by Regent Nystuen. Are there any additional comments from members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. The action agenda, we have items A through G, and we'll take item A first, policy revision 970.1, financial affairs, biennial allocation of state funds to Montana University System campuses by OCHI. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved by Regent Sheehy. Are there any additional comments from members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Action item B, request for authorization to transfer interest in real property, Missoula College to Missoula County Public School District from Missoula. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved by Regent Albrecht. Is there any additional comments from members of the board, the campuses, or the public? Any additional comment? Any additional comment? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. Action item C, request for authorization to replace and finance artificial turf at Montana State University's Bobcat Stadium, MSU Bozeman. Is there a motion to approve? It's been moved by Regent Nystuen. Any additional comments from members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item passes. Action item D, request for authorization to install new center-hung video board in Dahlberg Arena of the Harry Adams Center, Missoula. Is there a motion to approve? Been moved by Regent Lozar. Any additional comments from members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Action item E, transfer interest in real property, MSU Billings. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
You've heard the motion by Regent Albrecht. Is there any additional comments by members of the board or campuses or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item passes. Action item F, request for authorization to enter into off-campus classroom lease by Gallatin College by MSU Bozeman. Is there a motion to approve? Been moved by Regent Nystuen. Is there any additional comments by members of the board? Oh, Regent Lozar.
No, he moved it.
Oh, I thought you had a comment, Regent Lozar. I'm sorry. The item has been moved by Regent Lozar. Are there any additional comments by members of the board or the campuses or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Action item G, policy revision 1004.1, naming of property, programs, and interior spaces by OCHI. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved by Regent Sheehy. Are there any additional comments by members of the board, campuses, or the public? Regent Sheehy.
A new version was posted today with the one minor change correcting the federal in Part 3E as requested by Chairman Tuss and discussed by Chairman Tuss.
Thank you, Regent Sheehy.
So we are voting on the corrected item.
Voting on, in essence, an amended version of what we saw yesterday that we all agreed to just by adding the word federal that we had discussed. Is the board clear on that? Okay.
And we changed a semicolon to a comma.
Ooh, well, that changes everything. Meeting's not going to get over today.
We're going to be here for a while. Regent Berkey?
So we talked about this yesterday about potentially having a mechanism to review this program at some point in the future. So I'm wondering if this is the appropriate juncture to indicate when we should review this policy at a later date.
That may be a good conversation to have. Commissioner, do you have any thoughts or ideas on that?
Mr. Chair, we absolutely can, and that has happened in the past. I think, Regent Berkey, if you'd like to, with your support of this, you can simply say you'd like to see it come back in 6 months or a year, whatever timeline you like, and we'll make sure that we review it with the board at that time.
All right, I move to amend.
Well, I don't think you have to amend it, just tell us to, and your staff will do it.
Yeah, I think a year seems like adequate time to see if this is adequately serving our campuses.
1 year, did you say? Okay.
We'll make sure that's in the minutes and it'll happen.
Thank you, Commissioner. So with a minor revision, with a minor amendment, that Regent Sheehy discussed with us and that we did talk about tomorrow, knowing that the entire policy will come back to us in a year. Thank you, Regent Berkey. Are there additional comments or questions from members of the board? Additional comments or questions from members of the board? Regent Albrecht.
I just want to encourage the campuses to keep us informed throughout the year as to any unintended consequences or how well this is working or not.
Thank you, Regent Albrecht. Are there any additional comments or questions from members of the board or the campuses or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes. Okay, let us now proceed to the Staff and Comp Committee agenda. And we have got 3 emeriti faculty items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Regent Johnstone. Any additional comments or questions from members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. We have our action item A, MSU billings. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved by Regent Nystuen. Is there any additional comments from members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Action item B, OCHI. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved by Regent Johnstone. Are there any additional comments by members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Action item C, policy 407, employee equity interest, Missoula. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved by Regent Johnstone. Any additional comments by members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. The motion passes. Let's now go to the ARSA Committee, Academic Research and Student Affairs Committee, which we talked about this morning. We have items A through D on the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Been moved by Regent Sheehy. Is there any additional comments by members of the board, campuses, or the public? Any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Action item A, level 2 executive summary. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
It's been moved by Regent Albrecht.
Question. So are we going to be voting, remind me again, are we going to be voting on the individual programs separately or collectively as a single action item?
It would be collectively.
Collectively. Okay. I probably should have voiced this earlier in the ARSA committee. My apologies. We did raise some concerns. I believe you did actually, Chairman Tuss, about the glass, the Bachelor of Arts in Glass at Western at the previous meeting in Missoula. And I guess I've been thinking a lot about that one. And I would like to hear some more thoughts of the regents regarding that one. I just want to make sure we're being as intentional as possible when we're doing these programs. So when I asked on the committee call, you know, was there any student support or community support to fuel this proposal? I didn't do that to pull the rug from underneath that institution. I was merely wanting to iterate, I believe, that I want our programs to be driven by a need or a community or student need, and so by us anticipating that, by moving forward with that program. So I think they made a good argument. They provided me with a lot of documents and made a strong argument for the career opportunities in the state and the region. However, I still have a little hesitation just about the hyper-focused nature of such a specific program. And I almost worry we're putting blinders on our students on this is it. And so I just want to hear the thoughts of other regents regarding this proposal.
As chair of the committee, I was satisfied with the additional information they supplied in response to your question, and I recognize your concerns, but I was very satisfied with the work that they did and the groundwork that they put in place to get the program. I support it fully.
And I would echo that sentiment, Regent Sheehy. I was the one, I believe, that indicated concern with regard to specifically the post-graduation employment of those that perhaps would go into this field. And I want to thank UM Western for the responsiveness in getting back to me about that. And I was very satisfied with the response that I received from them. Additional comments?
Well, I shared initially when I saw it your concern of skepticism given the title, but actually read the materials and was satisfied that it's a legitimate. I can support it.
All right, thank you for that.
Are there additional comments or questions on this item? Regent Sheehy?
I'll just ask Levi, are your concerns such that you want to vote separately?
No, I think you guys adequately gave me enough justification that I think I support the program. My concerns, though, are just a trend I think I'm seeing in higher education. I don't mean to put this program on the chopping block, but this hyper-focused nature of moving programs to have such specificity that I think we're almost losing you know, the skills that we not only want to impart professionally in our students, but also those qualities like analytical thinkers, engaged citizens, and people that can, you know, go out into the community and have the effective communication skills. And I just worry that if we hyper-focus too much, that we kind of lose sight of those qualities at a baccalaureate level.
For what it's worth, I share your concerns. I mean, I think my sense is that there is an extraordinary fragmentation of curriculum and a narrowness of curriculum, and I philosophically share your concerns. I actually had a conversation with President Cruzado the other day. Having said that, with respect to this one, I can support it. It's perhaps an issue that, a broader issue of discussion and strategy that we might want to engage in down the road. But.
In Regent Berge, to Regent Sheehy's comment or question to you, out of courtesy of your concerns, I'd be more than happy to set this aside as a separate motion if you would feel more comfortable about that, and we can approve all of the other proposals as one motion and set this aside, and there can be a separate motion on this issue if you feel more comfortable with that.
I think I'm going to vote for it, so I don't think that's necessary.
Okay. Regent Berge, thank you for bringing that up. That's a good conversation. Is there any additional conversation on this or questions on this item or any of the items on this particular motion? Remind me, the motion has been made?
Yes.
Okay.
I made it.
Amy says no.
Well, I'm just asking who made the motion.
It was me.
Oh, okay. Regent Albrecht made the motion to approve action item A for the ARSA Committee, which is level 2 executive summary. Are there any additional comments or questions from members of the board or campuses or the public? Are there any additional comments? Any additional comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. The motion passes. We're now at the point for public comment. Before we do that, I do have one introduction. I certainly should have done this earlier. I believe he's still here. Nate St. Pierre, who is the president of Stonechild College, is here today representing the Montana Tribal College Presidents Association. Nate, are you still here? There you are. Thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate your attendance at the Board of Regents. I'd also like to thank, and we don't do this enough, I'd certainly like to thank Montana PBS for the up to, believe it or not, 2,000 people that watch these proceedings throughout the state of Montana, which is an incredible number in my opinion. That obviously could not happen without the good work of Montana PBS, and so I do want to thank Montana PBS formally for the good work that they do, not just at this meeting, but throughout the year at all of our Board of Regent meetings. Thank you, Montana PBS. And with that, I would open the microphone to anybody for public comment. This is a time for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Oh, yeah, here we go. Thank you for being with us today. You could state your name for the record.
I'm very happy to be here today, as at every Board of Regents meeting is always exciting, and I enjoy your meetings, and I want to commend the university system as well as the Regents for a job well done and for being inclusive of the American Indians in the state of Montana. We have about 5% of the college population that is American Indians, and we hope to grow that. And I want to commend the dual enrollment program for the high school. We had 2 Northern Cheyennes out of the Miles City dual enrollment program. One graduated last year in the university system, and the other one will graduate this year. There is another program that I don't know whether it's been mentioned or if the university knows about it, but it's the dual enrollment with the tribally controlled colleges. And this is something I think if we can get all of the university programs involved in this dual enrollment program with the tribally controlled colleges, we could prepare our 2-year programs at the tribally controlled colleges to move into the university system more prepared. And with the advising process that goes on in this program with the university system at MSU Billings and Chief Don Life College and the University of Montana. We have agreements with them that our students can be dual enrolled in those colleges as well as Chief Don Life College. And this helps our students be more prepared to go in the university because we get the advisors to participate with our students. And so I think that kind of a program would be very successful throughout the university system because we are the feeder tribally controlled colleges are feeders into the university system. And then I also like to thank the AMA Council for their work and their inclusion of American Indians. And I think I would also like to recommend to the AMA Council that they include the tribally departments of education in their process. And like my program provides about $200,000 into the university system. We provide a lot of money. And we're a small program, and we're a small tribe. But we put a lot of money into the university system as well as the communities. And so we have a lot of ideas. We work with the university system advisors. We work with their financial aid officers and to make our students successful in the university system. So if you would include us in this process, that would be much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being here and for your comments. We appreciate it.
Did you get her name?
I'm sorry, ma'am. Did we get your name? Did we? I'm sorry. Did we? For the record? I apologize for that. I should have caught that.
My name is Norma Bixby. I'm the director of the Northern Cheyenne Tribal Education Department in Leander, Montana.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Are there any additional public comments? Any additional public comments? Are there any additional public comments? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.